Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became the Quirk Scientist. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Drip. Drip. An alarm blares from the nightstand. Izuku groans and swings his legs over the side of his bed, turning off his obnoxious alarm in the process. The hardwood floor is cold against his bare feet, but he doesn't mind all that much. He grabs onto the railing as he rushes down the stairs to the bar. Behind the bar and cleaning a glass is the wispy form of Kurogiri. Kurogiri-san, I think there's a leak in my room, Izuku calls out as he walks towards the wooden bar. The green-haired boy climbs onto a bar stool and rests his chin on his hand. I'll have someone look at it whilst you're attending school, Kurogiri replies and puts down the glass to pass a plate of breakfast to Izuku. There's scrambled eggs, a piece of toast, and 2 pieces of bacon. All in all, a very American meal. Make sure you warp me a few blocks from UA. If anyone sees your quirk before our attack, suspicion will be hard to escape on my part, Izuku points out and begins to scarf down his food. Of course, Kurogiri responds. Footsteps echo as the owner walks down the stairs. Tamura drags himself to the bar and flops into a bar stool. When his head falls onto the counter, a resounding thud sounds through the bar. Tamura, please refrain from bashing your head on the counter, Kurogiri scolds. Tamura retaliates by picking up his head and smacking it against the counter again. Izuku smiles and stands up. He walks behind Tamura and puts his chin on the older boy's shoulder. Good morning, Toma-chan, Izuku sing-songs. Tamura groans and pulls up his head to look at Izuku. How do you have so much energy? Tamura whines. Izuku grins. The smile doesn't quite reach his eyes, which only adds to Izuku's threatening demeanor. Izuku, please don't antagonize Tamura, a voice echoes from the television. Tamura immediately straightens his back when he hears the voice. Why not? Izuku groans. Aren't you going to be late? Sensei, there's a hint of amusement to his voice. Izuku's eyes widen. The green-haired boy stands up and runs to the door. He yanks his vibrant yellow backpack onto his back and turns to Kurogiri. Kurogiri, can you open a warp gate? Izuku frantically asks. Remember your notebook? Sensei drawls. Izuku holds out his left hand and telekinetically pulls a notebook to him. A swirling purple and black warp gate appears in the middle of the bar. Stay safe, Izuku, Sensei says. There's a hidden fondness in the statement. Izuku looks over at the television with a maniac grin on face. I will sense it. After all, the only way to destroy UA is from the inside. Aizawa Shoyuta, aka Underground Pro Hero Eraserhead, had good instincts. His quirk testing in the beginning of the year was not just to test quirks but a person's personality too. But nothing, no amount of training or experience, could prepare him for the enigma that is Midoriya Izuku. Contrary to popular belief, Aizawa did listen to his class. He had heard so much gossip from them, but the first day was different. Aizawa is crawling in his sleeping bag to the door to 1A when he hears shouting from inside. Noisy classes were normal, but this was more aggressive than a catching up of old friends. You just FNG vanished, Deku. Where the F were you for 2 years? Came a voice from someone particularly angry at this, Deku. From what Aizawa could remember, there was no Deku on his class roster. So a nickname it is, Aizawa thinks bitterly. Keikaken P please, Deku begs. His voice is higher-pitched but still male and clearly radiated anxiety. The rest of the class stays silent. A loud thud and a desk falling over sound in the air. A popping noise makes the faint smell of caramel reach Aizawa. Aizawa had heard enough. Aizawa yanks himself out of the sleeping bag and throws open the door, Quirk already activated with his capture weapon at the ready. What he sees doesn't impress him one bit. A blonde kid with explosions dancing around in his palms, Bakugo Katsuki, his memory supplied, standing over a green-haired boy clutching his wrist on the floor, Midoriya Izuku. The rest of the class is shocked into silence as they had watched the entire confrontation. What is going on here? Aizawa demands. The explosions stop in Bakugo's hands and Midoriya stiffens. Heh. And why would I tell you? Bakugo shouts. Aizawa's red eyes become more vibrant. Because I can easily expel for assault right now, Aizawa retorts. That shitty Deku deserves it. Bakugo snaps. Aizawa releases his quirk and glances over at Midoriya. The haunted look in Midoriya's eyes says that this isn't the first time Bakugo has attacked him. Aizawa's blood runs slightly hotter at that realization. Midoriya, is your wrist okay? Aizawa asks. I am okay, sensei, Midoriya stammers. Aizawa sighs. Ida, take Midoriya to Recovery Girl. Drag him if you need to. Bakugo, we're having a talk about this after school. Let's get on with class, Aizawa says. He would love to drag Bakugo's ego down by a peg or two, but it wasn't the time just yet. Midoriya carefully stands up and begins walking out of the classroom with Ida next to him. Aizawa sighs yet again. This class would be the death of him. He didn't realize how true that statement would hold out to be. Ida Tenya prided himself on arriving to school 30 minutes early. He energetically walks through the hallways of UA until he reaches the door to Class 1. Ida opens the door and turns to face the class. Ida takes a step back as his eyes widen. Chills run through him. Ida opens his mouth and screams in terror. Thick ropes wrapped around his wrists, Aoyama Yuga is hanging from the ceiling. There is a thick hole gouged into his stomach, revealing the moist red-hued muscle. Right where his quirk would have been used. His blonde hair is matted with blood on one side of his head. Intestines are hanging out from the cavity in his torso. Crimson blood drips from his mouth from having all his teeth yanked out. His fingers are horrifically twisted in every direction and bone is visible in some spots. The worst part was how much he had obviously suffered before bleeding out. Midnight and Aizawa rush into the classroom to see what the commotion is. Aizawa turns to see his student dead. When Aizawa speaks, his voice is strained. Midnight, inform Nedzu immediately. One of our students has been murdered. The official cause of death was blood loss. Cementas had already put up a barrier on the door of 1A's classroom. There was an official notice to all the 1A students to go to Gym Gamma made via the announcement system. When all the students, -2, had arrived in Gym Gamma, they were all confused. Both Aizawa and All Might walked forward to them. The class would have cheered in presence of the symbol of peace, but his somber smile made them think twice. Sensei, where's Aoyama? Kaminari asks and tilts his head. Everyone finally notices how red Aizawa's eyes are without his quirk. This morning, your classmate Aoyama Yuga was found dead in the classroom. Ida Tenya was dismissed to go home after giving his statement of finding the body, Aizawa says. Gasps run through the class. Uraraka brings her hands to cover her mouth, Kaminari takes a wobbly step backwards, and even Todoroki has a reaction of widening his eyes. This has to be a joke, right? Ashido asks. Her eyes are misty with tears. Aizawa shakes his head. I'm sorry, but it isn't a joke. Your classmate is gone, Aizawa says. The brief silence is interrupted by Ashido's audible crying. Do you know who's behind it? Todoroki asks. We do not, Aizawa says through gritted teeth. All right, which one of you Beastos killed him? Bakugo snaps. Young Bakugo, calm down. There's no suspicion on you or your classmates, All Might speaks up. His normally booming voice is much more subdued today. Unknown to everyone, Midoriya Izuku is absolutely elated on the inside. His plan has already been put into motion. After school, around a long table sits all the faculty members of UA plus one detective. Nedzu puts his paws together and his cheery smile is nowhere in sight. I've already explained the situation and offered my condolences to the Aoyama family, Nedzu says. The mood is dull today. Yamada is speaking at an indoor volume, Kayama isn't being as flirtatious, and even All Might is slightly less energetic. Naomasa-san, can you report your findings? Nedzu asks. Tsukachi nods and stands up. He has a small notepad clutched at his stomach. It appears Aoyama Yuga's death was caused by the blood loss of his wounds. His wounds included cracked ribs, blunt force to the head, and a hole in his stomach. His fingernails were ripped off, his teeth were all removed, and it appears his fingers were badly broken as well. The most noticeable wound caused was the initials TQS carved into his shoulder. Tsukachi recites. TQS, what does that mean? Kiyama asks. The Quirk scientist, Aizawa breathes. Who? Yagi Toshinori asks. Aizawa sighs and rubs the bridge of his nose. What I'm telling you is highly classified. If the media gets their hands on this, there will be mass panic. This information will not leave this room. Understood? Aizawa asks. His voice is deathly serious. Everyone nods. Aizawa lets out a small breath. We don't have much information on him. He's known as the Quirk scientist. He has been around for the past 3 years. In the 3 years he's been active, the police haven't been able to build a solid profile. He kidnaps people with mutation quirks to study them, Aizawa explains. By the end, everyone is horrified that a person would do such a thing and that they didn't know of such a person. I understand why you've been so adamant on not letting this go public, Toshinori says and clears his throat. But why would he kill Aoyama Yuga? Kiyama asks. Perhaps it's publicity, 13 suggests. Everyone turns to them. Why would he be interested in that now? Aizawa retorts. It's highly possible this individual simply didn't care that his victim was a UA student, Nedzu points out. His past victims suggest that is a possibility. He hasn't cared about age, race, or family, so it's unlikely for him to care now, Tsukachi says. Nedzu straightens his papers on the table. I approved All Might-san's idea to make Class 1A use the buddy system when leaving school grounds. All Might has already informed Class 1A about this change and they have agreed, Nedzu proclaims. Why 1A specifically? Yamada asks. It's only a suggestion to other courses. It is a necessity for the hero course, Nedzu replies. We could just implement the dormitories early, Cementos points out. The board has decided to let us implement dormitories slightly early than the original date. Likely a few days after the hero courses have their rescue exercises at the unforeseen simulation joint. Now then, any more questions? Nobody raises a hand or voices questions. I appreciate the understanding. Tsukachi, you may return to the police station. This meeting will now continue with the topic of preventing students traveling through the vents. Before you go, I'd like you to meet our main spy, Sensei's voice echoes from the television. The boy in a UA uniform gulps and nods. His eyes widen and his mouth is slightly agape when Midoriya Izuku casually walks down the stairs and sits on a barstool. Izuku is wearing a white button-up with a maroon vest. A black tie on his neck is 50 types of screwed up, and how the hell does a tie look like a rag? With the cyan sweatpants and added orange bunny slippers, Izuku is a fashion disaster. It's you? The UA student asks. It is me, Izuku replies and looks over. How though? You're so cheerful and anxious. Izuku barks out a cold laugh. I could ask you the same thing, Kaminari Denki, Izuku retorts. The newly identified Kaminari grimaces. I want to be seen as strong. I don't want to be the idiot or the class clown. I just want to be treated normally, Kaminari explained. It's because of your quirk, isn't it? The discrimination, the jokes, the laughing, Izuku asks. Yes, Kaminari says through gritted teeth. Kaminari looks away when he hears Izuku stand up and walk up to Kaminari. When a hand lands on Kaminari's shoulder, he looks up. The look on Midoriya Izuku's face isn't pity or anger, it's understanding. I was quirkless until I was 13 years old. I've seen it, I've heard it, and I've felt what you have. I was called Deku, meaning useless. I was beaten and scarred just because of my genetics. Sensei gave me quirk, the league gave me a family, and UA gave me an opportunity, Izuku explains. Izuku pulls back the sleeves of his shirt to his elbows. Kaminari takes a deep breath as he sees it. There's scars tracing over his arms. Most of them are burn scars. Bakugo called you Deku, Kaminari realized. Izuku nods. He was my main torment. He would use his quirk on me and he was the one to make up my nickname. He turned the entire school against me, Izuku says softly. Izuku's eyes suddenly narrow and he yanks a throwing knife from his vest and throws it at the wall in one swift movement. You can come out, you know. You aren't very good at hiding your breathing, Toru, Izuku says in a cold voice. You're just too perceptive. A feminine voice calls out. Kaminari sputters. Hagakure? Kaminari asks. Things? Hagakure exclaims. Izuku sighs and grabs a small plastic bag. He tosses the bag and it's caught by an invisible hand. They're clothes, Izuku explains. Oh, thank goodness. Hagakure exclaims in relief. The floating plastic bag goes to the closet and opens the door. She shuts the door behind her. So Hagakure is a traitor too? Kaminari asks. That's correct, Izuku informs him and goes back to his bar stool. Hagakure comes out of the closet wearing a light blue dress with a wide white stripe on the back. Any other traitors I should know about? Kaminari asks. The sarcasm is dripping from his tone. Nope, Izuku replies and pops the pea. Kaminari looks over at Hagakure. Why did you join the league, Hagakure? Kaminari asks. Her shoulders tense. I just wanted to be acknowledged as a person. Midoriya gave me the chance to be seen as a person and promised to try finding a way to make me visible, Hagakure explains. Izuku claps his hands together. Now that we all know each other's tragic backstories, I think both of you earned the right to call me my given name, Izuku announces. The floating dress excitedly bounces up and down. Then both of you can call me Toru, Hagakure exclaims. Kaminari smiles and lets out a small chuckle. Izuku decides he likes the sound. I guess you can call me Denki, Kaminari says and nervously scratches the back of his head. Oh, you're free to sleep over if you want to. Since it's already so late, I wouldn't want either of you to get kidnapped or something, Izuku offers. Kaminari takes out his phone and opens it to the lock screen. The time reads 23:16, 11:16 p.m. Are you sure? We wouldn't want to impose, Hagakure trails off. Izuku waves off her concerns. Don't worry about it. You're part of the team and it's our responsibility to take care of each other, Izuku assures them. But neither of us have pajamas, Kaminari points out. We're all close enough in height that I can lend you some of mine. I have spare toothbrushes in the bathroom and I doubt Kurogiri-sen would mind making more servings of breakfast tomorrow, Izuku replies. Kaminari hesitates but then smiles. I'm in. My mom doesn't care, Kaminari says. I'll join too. It's been a while since I've been to sleep over. Hagakure exclaims. Are your parents okay with us staying over? Kaminari asks. Oh, my mom's dead and my dad could be dead for all I care. The league is the only family I have, Izuku says and shrugs. I'm sorry for bringing it up, Kaminari mutters. Don't worry about it too much. Now then, who wants ice cream? Izuku asks and quickly changes the mood of the room. Me! Both of the traitors shout. Izuku runs with the two to his room. The sounds of laughter and singing to Disney songs echoes throughout the bar for the next few hours. From his room, All for One is thinking of ways to torture one Midoriya Hisashi. You know, we should definitely hang out more often, Midoriya suggests. Hagakure is on his right and Kaminari is on his left. Yamada doesn't know what compels him to watch out for the little listener, but he's taking a page out of Shota's book and trusting his instincts. Yamada is already standing at the front of the school but out of view from the reporters swarming the gate. When the reporters notice the three, they immediately jump at the kids. Yamada sees the exact moment Midoriya tenses at having so many people near him. Midoriya Izuku's eyes are dull and unseeing. His arms are shaking and he's beginning to breathe quicker. Yamada leaves his spot with anger. Izuku was just walking with Kaminari and Hagakure when the reporters surrounded them. Izuku begins panicking because he can't breathe. The chains are digging into Izuku's wrists. He stopped crying a long time ago. He's given up on so-called heroes. Nobody would save him. Nobody would care if he just gave up on living. Then why do you keep fighting? Her voice is back. Izuku doesn't know why she keeps coming back to him. He's worthless, he's useless, so why does someone so kind care about him? Izuku, you are not worthless. You are not useless. You are Midoriya Izuku, a survivor and one of best people I know. Alright, that's what his name meant. She gives him a reason to fight. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to prove how useless he was. For he was now Midoriya Izuku. The familiar pain of starvation keeps him tethered. The pain is the only sign that he's still alive. I will get you out of here. I refuse to let you suffer the same fate that I did. The fire reignites in Izuku. He will escape. He will do it for her. By the time the time heroes arrive, Izuku is nowhere to be seen. Yamada immediately recognizes that Midoriya is having a panic attack of sorts. He managed to get the reporters away, so now Midoriya was sitting on his knees away from everyone at the edge of the trees. Yamada is on one knee next to the boy and manages to decipher what Midoriya keeps muttering. The green-haired teen is mumbling phrases like, "Nobody is coming," and "She will help." Suddenly, Midoriya stops muttering altogether. "Midoriya, can you hear me?" Yamada asks softly. "Mom, why are you so red?" Midoriya's small voice asks. It's a voice so broken and so unlike the upbeat child from yesterday. The phrase makes chills involuntarily run throughout him. Yamada puts a, hopefully, comforting hand on Midoriya's shoulder. "It's me, Midoriya. You're at UA, you're safe," Yamada says. The fog finally begins to clear from Midoriya's eyes. Yamada removes his hand. The tears are still running down Midoriya's face, and Yamada wonders when the boy began silently crying. Midoriya looks up at Yamada with wide eyes. "Yamada-sensei?" Midoriya asks softly. Yamada nods. "It's me, little listener," Yamada assures him. "Is it really you? Are you just another illusion?" Midoriya asks and curls in on himself a little. It would be unnoticeable to normal people, but Yamada is not a normal person. Yamada holds out his hand for Midoriya to see. "I'm really here," Yamada replies. Midoriya hesitantly pokes Yamada's hand, then his eyes somehow widen further. Before he knows what's happening, Midoriya is hugging onto him for dear life. Midoriya is audibly sobbing now. Yamada hugs back. "It's all right now. I am here." After a few minutes, Midoriya pulls away. Midoriya just looks up at Yamada with a small smile. "I guess I'm going to be late for class," Midoriya jokes. Yamada grins. "Don't worry about it. Shota won't be upset if you were with another teacher," Yamada says. Midoriya wordlessly nods. Yamada hops back up and offers his hand to Midoriya. Midoriya takes the hand and is pulled up. Yamada notices how little Midoriya weighs and adds that tidbit of information to the back of his mind. Yamada accompanies Midoriya to Class 1A. He can't ignore the nagging voice that mysteriously sounded a bit like Shota, that something was off with Midoriya Izuku. Aizawa is thoroughly suspicious when he walks into the teacher's lounge. The reason is simple. Yamada is quiet. Yamada is quiet. So Aizawa reacts accordingly. "What happened to my husband?" Aizawa asks. Yagi Toshinori chokes on blood and wipes it away with a handkerchief. "Sho, I need to borrow your official files of the students in one," Yamada says. "Why?" Aizawa asks. The rest of the teachers are now listening in on the conversation. "Maybe he wants to mentor one of your students," Kayama suggests. Yamada blinks. "I actually might mentor him. But first, I want to check something," Yamada explains. "Which student?" Aizawa sighs. "Midoriya Izuku." "Why him in particular?" "He doesn't have a sound-based quirk or a voice quirk," Toshinori points out. Yamada's lips quirk up in a small smile. "The little listener had a panic attack because of being crowded. I managed to get him away, but I overheard some of the things he was muttering and I'm worried about the poor kid," Yamada replies. Aizawa freezes at the mention of a panic attack. Midoriya had been late for class and he was trembling. Why hadn't he connected the pieces sooner? Aizawa walks over to his desk and picks up a single paper. He walks back over to Yamada and moves it into the blonde's hands. Yamada frowns as he begins skimming through the paper. "Is this all there is?" Yamada asks. Aizawa nods. "The problem child ran away from his orphanage about 5 years ago. When I called his caretakers, they confirmed that they had not Midoriya since he was 10. There's no files on him past then," Aizawa replies. Yamada looks over at the home address of Midoriya Izuku. There's no address listed. "Why don't we just ask the kid about it?" Kayama asks. "We could bring back bad memories," Yamada says and shudders. "Very bad memories." "Yamada, what were you trying to find with this information?" Aizawa asks. I want to know why he asked why his mother was so red during his panic attack. Yamada retorts. Kayama blinks, then her eyes widen. He saw his mother's death, Kayama realized. And that's another reason why we shouldn't ask his situation. 13 chimes in. What do you mean by that, 13? Toshinori asks. Well, the poor boy is obviously affected by his mother's death if his panic attack is anything to go by. If we straight up ask him, we could trigger repressed trauma, 13 explains. It does make sense if you used your goddamn head and actually thought about it, Aizawa says and glares at Toshinori. Even as the symbol of peace, Toshinori was about as oblivious as a blind and deaf toddler. Actually, a toddler would probably be more observant than Toshinori. Wait, if there's no home address listed, then how did he get his acceptance letter? Vlad King asks. The sneaky brat opened a box at the post office, Aizawa says through gritted teeth. Such a simple tactic yet so very effective, Nedza comments. Wait, Nedzu? Aizawa whips around to see the rat standing nearby. Has he caught your interest too? Yamada asks. Everyone collectively sweat drops at that statement. If this kid had done something to catch Nedza's attention, the entire school would suffer. That is correct. It's been a long time since someone has managed to get a perfect score on the written exam, and Midoriya Izuku had received full points for every part. His analysis skills were to the point and were obviously honed to that point of mastery, Nedzu explains and pulls out a teacup from somewhere. Please don't traumatize him, Yamada quickly says. Nedza cackles. No promises. Nedza did not realize until later that the statement should have been aimed at Midoriya Izuku. Izuku cleans the blade of his knife with a rag and smiles at his appearance. Izuku wears a gray shirt, dark blue jeans, and a lab coat that reaches just underneath his knees. A muffled scream brings him back to his senses. Izuku groans. Can you just shut up for 2 minutes? Izuku asks and turns to the person chained in a crate. Izuku is currently in his lab. The walls and ceilings are white while the floor is basic concrete. There's a white table with straps in the middle of the room with a trolley full of medical tools next to the table. 5 human-sized crates are on either side of the room. When the time comes for having to dispose of the bodies, Izuku just relies on the other league members to use their quirks. Izuku walks over to the occupied crate and opens the door. He rips off the duct tape from the girl's mouth and the girl looks at him with watery eyes. Please tell me this isn't happening, the girl begs. Please tell me this is a dream. This is not a dream. This is reality, Izuku assures her. But why you? She screams at him. Anger flares through Izuku, so he grabs the front of her shirt in a fist and makes her look right into his eyes. This is who I am. I am a quirk enthusiast. A 13-year-old student in a Gakurin writing in his notebook at a hero-villain fight. I am a murderer. A 14-year-old boy stands above the corpse of a businessman who lays in a pool of his blood. I am a monster. A 10-year-old boy is pinning a man on the floor with a knife stabbed through the man's hand. I am a doctor. 12-year-old Izuku is threading stitches on a gash on Tamura's upper arm. And I am a villain. Izuku lets go of her pink shirt and sighs. My apologies. I lost my temper there for a minute, Izuku says and adjusts his LTX gloves. He glances back at his classmate's face. There's tears running her round face and her bob cut is messy from struggling. A small smile appears on Izuku's face as the girl sobs. Ah, the joy of watching others realizing that their life is in his hands. Why? The girl whispers. Why what? Izuku inquires. Why did you go to UA? Why are you killing people? Why are you a villain? She demands. Didn't your parents teach you any tact? Never mind that for now. Since you asked so kindly, I will answer your questions, Ochako-chan, Izuku replies. Uraraka Ochako growls from inside the crate. Only my friends get to call me that, Uraraka says. Well, you're never seeing your friends again, so I think I can be an exception, Izuku retorts in a voice dripping with sarcasm. Izuku sighs again and speaks before Uraraka can. I'm going to UA because I didn't trust our traitors to take good notes. So I decided to infiltrate so I could see all the quirks firsthand. I kill people because it's too hard to take care of a person. I can't properly take care of myself, so it would be hard for me to care for literally anyone. Also, all my experiments have seen my face. If I let them free, they'll report my identity and my secret identity will be gone, Izuku explains. Izuku suddenly pauses and he thinks back to her last question. As for why I became a villain, I didn't choose this life. Society forced me to be like this. Izuku turns to Uraraka. She freezes as she sees the pure pain on his face. They hurt me. They pushed me down. They beat me every single day. They told me to die. So I did die. I'm not the useless Deku anymore. I'm Midoriya Izuku now. The useless person I was died on that rooftop, Izuku says. His voice cracks on the word die. Ochako-chan, your quirk is really interesting, you know? Izuku lets out a humorless chuckle. That laugh sends chills down Uraraka's spine. I would love to study it, Izuku exclaims. His eyes darken with mania. He intertwines his fingers and smiles. After all, I am the quirk scientist. Izuku walks out to the bar and slides into a bar stool. His hair is damp and his smile is tired. Kurogiri's yellow eyes scrunch up in a way that makes it look like he's smiling. I take it that you're prepared for the USJ? Kurogiri asks. Kurogiri, can I ask you for a favor? As long as it isn't too difficult. It isn't. Just make sure to give Eraserhead any fatal wounds. Please, Izuku says. There's desperation in his voice. If you don't mind me inquiring, why him specifically? Kurogiri asks. He's nice. He isn't like my past teachers. He actually protected me from Kaken. I don't want him to die, Izuku explains. Everyone in the league already knew about Izuku's past. They sympathized with someone who was hurt by society and immediately accepted him as their little brother. Kurogiri put out his misty hand and put it on Izuku's head. The mist was cold but comforting. I understand your concern. I promise you that I won't allow Tamura to fatally wound Eraserhead, Kurogiri assures the green-haired teen. Izuku smiles and yawns. I'm going to sleep. I need to be well-rested if I want to kick your butts at these, Izuku says and stands up. Kurogiri snorts as Izuku goes upstairs. Kurogiri remembers when he first met Midoriya Izuku. The green-haired 8-year-old was running then hid in the alley in front of the entrance. The boy had sprained his ankle and couldn't properly walk, so Kurogiri patched him up. After that day, Izuku just kept meeting up with them until something changed. When Izuku was 10, he walked in with a haunted look in his eyes after not showing up for 2 weeks. He had his backpack with him and looked up to Kurogiri and said something that made Kurogiri want to help the boy right then. Mom is dead. The other kids and the adults were mean, so I left the orphanage. There were no heroes to help her and there are no heroes to help me. Is it okay if you stay with you? Kurogiri accepted the boy to their makeshift family immediately. The league saw someone else that was beaten down and abused to the point that he broke. They were there to pick up the pieces of Izuku's crushed dreams and patch up his wounds from. Izuku was family. Nothing would stop the league from protecting their family. Bakugo Katsuki was said. No, this wasn't his normal anger. Bakugo was infuriated. Out of nowhere, Deku comes back after 2 years of being missing. And the fucker now has a quirk. Now 2 of his shitty classmates aren't here. Sparkle fucker was killed and Round Face just didn't show that day. They were on the bus to the USJ when Frog Beach spoke up. Midoriya? She asked. Deku lifted his head and took out one of his earbuds. What is it, Azui-san? Deku asks. Deku wore his hero costume, which consisted of a dark green jumpsuit, a metal respirator, and black combat boots. From what Bakugo knows from the battle simulation, there's also a ton of FING pockets with a ton of weapons. Please call me Tsuyu-chan, Karo. Izuku nodded in acknowledgement. I'll be blunt. Your quirk confuses me, Tsuyu says. Deku blinks and removes his other earbud. My quirk is called push and pull. It's centered in my eyes, but I still hold out my hands so nobody figures out the trigger of my quirk. If I overuse my quirk, I get headaches and my eyes become sore, Deku explains. The phone on his lap floats up as a demonstration. Why would you hide the trigger of your quirk? That is quite deceiving, Midoriya-kun. Ida exclaims. Ida is still a bit shaken up from discovering Aoyama's body, but he had begun speaking with Hound Dog. Well, that's the point. If villains found out that my quirk was involved with my eyes, they would be targeted as a point of weakness. Besides, I'm not planning on being a spotlight hero. I think my quirk is more suited for rescue and underground heroics, Deku explains. Bakugo resists the urge to kill Deku right then and there. That demon nerd kept trying to show him up. Bakugo feels conflicted about 13's speech. If he had misplaced any one of those explosions on Deku, he could have easily killed that DMN nerd. When villains begin pouring out of a weird purple portal, Bakugo catches a glimpse of Deku's face. What he sees sends chills throughout him. Deku is smiling. His eyes are bright with insanity. That smile promises pain. As quick as the smile appears on Deku's face, it vanishes. When a portal washes over Bakugo, he feels fear. He's in the downpour zone. This attack was planned. The heavy rain is diluting his sweat. His explosions will be weaker. But how did those fuckers know his weakness? Bakugo scowls as the villains begin making a crowd around him. Bakugo, do you have a plan? Bakugo glares over his shoulder to see Emo Big Bird and Pikachu. Teach obviously. We blow out their demon brains. Bakugo screams and charges. After all, they were all on their own. In the flood zone, Sato Rikido, Koda Koji, and Shoji Mizo are stranded on a shipwreck. Their body types won't allow them to swim easily. There's no animals for Koda to talk to, Shoji can't properly swim with his extra limbs, and all Sato's sugars are soggy and clumped together from the water. Despite their hopeful thinking, they couldn't help but feel worthless. They were all on their own. In the ruins zone, Ida Tenya, Mineta Minoru, and Todoroki Shoto are surrounded by villains. Ida can't run at full speed unless he wants to snap his ankles, Mineta is practically useless by panicking, and Todoroki can't use full-sized attacks if he wants to stay upright on the ridge terrain. Nonetheless, the two sane hero hopefuls aren't giving up so easily. So what if they can't use their quirks? Even then, they could not dismiss the doubtful voices in the back of their heads. They were all on their own. In the landslide zone, Yaoyorozu Momo, Shirohanta, and Hagakure Toru are struggling to get back to the plaza. Shiro doesn't have anything to latch onto, Hagakure has already sprained her ankle, and Yaoyorozu's concussion is making it very difficult to use her quirk. Regardless of their wounds, the three would not give in to the villains. They couldn't help but have the same thought when no pro-heroes had arrived yet. They were all on their own. In the mountain zone, Ashido Mina, Kirishima Eijiro, and Jiraiya Kyoka are faring slightly better than everyone else. Ashido is using her acid to burn the eyes of her opponents, Kirishima is protecting both the girls, and Jiraiya is hurling rocks at villains with her earphone jacks. They're working together as a team, but they know they can't keep it up forever. Their determination is fueled by one collective thought. They were all on their own. In the fire zone, the three remaining are suffering. Ojiro Mashireo is knocking out the villains who come too close to his classmates. Azuitiu is on the brink of collapsing from the heat. Midoriya Izuku is telekinetically throwing villains through the air. Midoriya internally grins as he has one thought. They were all on their own. In the plaza, Aizawa Shota is making quick work of the small-time villains. His eyes are screaming for him to stop, but he can't. 13 has already been put out of commission, and that big blonde oaf hasn't showed up yet. He was all on his own. Shigaraki Tamura is grinning maniacally behind his father's hand. Oh, how he loves their screams. He loves the feeling of the flesh crumbling away underneath his touch. He would relish in Sensei's praise when All Might took his last breath today. He was ready to kill the symbol of peace. Ojiro, can you handle the rest of the villains until we get to Plaza? Izuku asks as he brings Tsuyu onto his back. Tsuyu is sweating and her eyes are dilated from the heat. Tsuchan, you can close your eyes and rest. My quirk can cool us down a bit, Izuku suggests. Do you think you could include me in your quirk as well? Ojiro asks and wipes the sweat off his forehead with the back of his left hand. Izuku nods and Ojiro trudges closer to the two. I thought your quirk only pushed and pulled things, Ojiro comments as the two boys began walking to the plaza, Tsuyu in an unresponsive state on Midoriya's back. I'm just constantly using my quirk to push and pull the air around us, Izuku replies. Ojiro blinks. That's a really interesting use for your quirk, Midoriya. Ojiro compliments. Izuku smiles. Thanks. Your quirk is also really cool, Izuku says. Soon the three reach the plaza and hide themselves behind a bush. A sickening crack makes them glance out to see Aizawa being pushed into the ground by a weird bird thing. Izuku is absolutely gleeful when he recognizes it. It's one of his best projects, the Nomu. The Nomu is a creature created with a human base. He had allowed Sensei himself to meddle in the project and transfer the quirks easier. Ojiro pales as he sees the Nomu crashing Aizawa-sensei into the ground, leaving behind a crater. Shigaraki begins scratching his neck, then turns to look right into Izuku's eyes. And, holy hell, it would be terrifying to see that pure malice-filled glare if you weren't used to it. Izuku has seen Tamura in his worst tantrums, but he still fakes fear for the realistic aspect. Tamura throws himself towards the three behind the bush. Izuku wonders how the hell he keeps forgetting how fast Tamura can be. Tamura reaches out and puts his hand slightly beneath Izuku's throat. Tamura remembers a small conversation the two had before the invasion. Tamura, just because I'm there, you shouldn't hold back. It would honestly be more suspicious if you didn't attack me a few times, Izuku explains. Are you okay if I use the Nomu against you? You are the creator, Tamura asks and scratches his neck. Izuku laughs. Don't worry. Yue has Recovery Girl and just think of it as a test run, Izuku assured him. Tamura lets out his twisted version of a laugh. It sounds like a weird combination of a wheeze and a child's giggling from a horror movie. Thank you, little creator, Tamura mutters and ruffles Izuku's hair with his pinky raised. Izuku snorts at the nickname. Izuku waits for the familiar pain of decay, but it never takes hold. You're so cool. Erase her head, Tamura says and looks over his shoulder. Aizawa's hair is barely floating and his face is stained red by his blood. Izuku takes this opportunity to use his quirk and throw Tamura through the air. Tamura is caught by a warp gate that safely deposits him on the ground. I didn't expect such a high-level NPC here, Tamura sneers. Todoroki appears near another side of the plaza. Izuku glances to Ojiro and removes Tsuyu from where she laid on him. Ojiro, I need you to protect Tsu-chan, Izuku says. His voice is steeled with determination. Izuku stands up and looks right into Tamura's dilated eyes. Midoriya-kun, you can't, Ojiro begs. Get her back to the entrance. Izuku shouts. Ojiro puts his arms underneath Tsuyu's knees and her arms. He begins walking towards the entrance. Midoriya, be careful, Ojiro thinks. Release Aizawa-sensei, Izuku says and holds out his hands at his sides. Nomu, release Eraser Head, Tamura says. The Nomu does as it's told. Izuku resists the urge to record the results of his work. Both villains are in a standoff when their classmates begin approaching the plaza in varying conditions. Tamura charges forward with an outstretched hand. Izuku charges forward with both his hands behind him. The two are in a dance of punches, jabs, and quirks. There's a kick every once in a while. Tamura lands a lucky shot and grabs at Izuku's hand. Your quirk works through your hands, doesn't it? Does it work if you don't have all your fingers? Tamura asks. Izuku screams as he feels two of his fingers decaying. Midoriya! Todoroki shouts and shoots ice at Tamura. Tamura jumps back and is greeted by a weak explosion to the jaw. Die! Bakugo screams. Izuku has never been so glad to see his childhood friend. Kirishima Ijiro runs to Midoriya, who's clutching his left hand. Blood is seeping through Midoriya's fingers no matter how hard he tries to stop the red liquid from flowing. Midobro, are you okay? Kirishima asks. Midoriya looks up with a pale face and a grimace. Just peachy, Midoriya retorts through gritted teeth. Kirishima looks at Midoriya's left hand closer and realizes that Midoriya's pinky and ring finger aren't broken, they're gone. We have to get you to the entrance, Kirishima exclaims. Midoriya's eyes are trained on Aizawa's limp and bloodied form though. Kirishima, I need you to cover me. I'm going to get Aizawa-sensei to the entrance, Midoriya says. But your hand dash. My hand will be fine. It's nothing compared to Aizawa-sensei's current injuries. If we don't get him help, he will die, Midoriya interrupts and looks right into Kirishima's eyes. The pure determination hides the desperation on the face. Kirishima's eyes are steeled with determination. I got your back, Mido bro. Kirishima exclaims. Midoriya smiles and slowly walks to Aizawa. Problem child, run, Aizawa gasps out. Kirishima is quite surprised that his teacher is still conscious because holy hell, that's a lot of blood. Sorry sensei. I couldn't just abandon you, Midoriya says. Midoriya crouches down and wraps his arms underneath Aizawa-sensei's arms. Midoriya stands up a bit straighter and begins taking small steps backwards. Kirishima takes a chance to look around. Most of his classmates have arrived at the entrance in varying conditions. Bakugo has pinned the Misty Man, Handyman was scratching his neck, and Todoroki was standing in a defensive fighting position. Then the doors of the USJ blasted out. A familiar voice calls out and immediately reassures everyone. Never fear. For I am here. Toshinori knew something was up when Aizawa and 13 wouldn't answer their communications. When Ida ran to UA with a sprained ankle and said the USJ was under attack, Toshinori sprinted the entire way to the UFE. He didn't know what he expecting. Shoji, Koda, and Sato were soaking wet, Aizawa was bleeding everywhere, Azui was unconscious, and Midoriya's hand was badly injured. Took you long enough. Bakugo screeched. That was one of the things he did expect. Toshinori reaches up and removes his tie. He wastes no time in transporting the remaining students, Todoroki, Bakugo, Kirishima, and Midoriya, to the entrance. What the F- Izuku? Kaminari asks in horror. Toshinori glances back to see Kaminari taking off his damp jacket to shove it onto Midoriya's mangled hand. Midoriya honest to God hisses but keeps the jacket there. Toshinori trusts his students to keep Aizawa stable enough until the rest of the pros arrived. Nomu attack, the teenager with the hand on his face says. The giant thing, Nomu, charges at Toshinori. Toshinori reels back his arm and lands a punch on the Nomu's side. Toshinori's eyes widen as he sees that his punch hadn't affected the Nomu at all. The villain leader cackles. Nomu has shock absorption, All Might. Your punches do nothing. The teenager exclaims. The Nomu put out its right arm and aimed right at Toshinori's old injury. The second before the arm made contact, a warp gate appeared and made the arm land on Toshinori's back. It took all of Toshinori's willpower to not cough up blood. Even with his willpower, a bit blood came through his teeth. I thought he had a strength quirk, Toshinori calls out. The villain leader grins. Who said Nomu had only one quirk? The teenager retorts. The implications of that statement make involuntary chills run through Toshinori. Toshinori can feel his quirk slipping but he ignores it. All Might's an aim for the right leg. Midoriya shouts. His voice travels throughout the UD. His voice is commanding and so unlike him. Toshinori follows Midoriya's advice though and rips off the Nomu's right leg. Another regrows in its place. Shigaraki Tamura, the reinforcements should be arriving soon. We must hurry, a man made entirely of mist says. The teenager, Shigaraki, looks on at the Nomu. I trust their work. Nomu, kill All Might, Shigaraki commands. The Nomu charges forward and Toshinori is locked into a flurry of punches between himself and the behemoth. Did you not hear me, All Might? Nomu has shock absorption. Your punches do nothing. Shigaraki exclaimed. There's a limit to absorption. Have you ever heard these words, villain? Go beyond, plus ultra. Toshinori says as he launches the Nomu through the ceiling of the US. Izuku's memories become a bit foggy after that. He remembers the rest of the pro heroes arriving. He remembers sniping Tamura with 4 bullets. He remembers snapping at Yamada-sensei to get Aizawa-sensei to the ambulances first. He remembers hissing out insults left and right. He remembers demanding the other paramedics take care of his classmates first. He remembers collapsing and someone warm taking to the ambulance. Yamada took notice of his surroundings when he arrived in the USJ. He notices Shoyuda and begins going over. Midoriya is sitting protectively at his side. Some of his classmates are also nearby. Izuku, you need get to the FING ambulances, Kaminari says. No thank you, Midoriya replies. Kaminari sputters. Izuku, you are missing 2 fingers, Kaminari points out. Yamada goes on one knee in front of them. He takes note of the fact that yes, Midoriya is missing his pinky and ring finger on his left hand. Everyone else can go. The heroes can handle the rest, Yamada assures everyone. The other students go outside. It's just Midoriya and Shoyuta. Midoriya is partially curled in on himself like a cornered animal. His teeth are bared and his green eyes have the faint glow of his quirk. Blood runs from Midoriya's nostrils and mixes with his scowl. Little listener, you should go to the ambulances. That hand needs medical attention, Yamada says. No. Aizawa-sensei needs more help than I do. Midoriya snaps. Midoriya lets out a shaky breath. Midoriya, you are injured too, Yamada points out. Midoriya levels him with a glare that could rival Shura's. Aizawa-sensei's injuries will become semi-permanent if we don't get him help first. I've already accepted that my fingers were disintegrated out of FING existence, but Aizawa-sensei's quirk could be harder to keep up if his shattered eye socket isn't treated soon, Midoriya explains. Midoriya struggles to pull himself to his feet. Yamada goes back to his feet. Midoriya, you can use your quirk to make Shoyuta easier to carry without irritating his injuries? Yamada asks. Midoriya glances back at the staircase then nods. Midoriya's eyes glow light green and Shoyuta floats up like he's suspended on an invisible force. As long as I keep eye contact on him, I'll be able to get him outside without him losing any more blood, Midoriya says and applies more pressure with the jacket on his left hand. Yamada nods. Midoriya begins side-stepping to the stairs then proceeds to go up the stairs with 2 missing fingers, his injured teacher, all while using his quirk. Midoriya, aren't you overusing your quirk? Yamada asked. Oh, definitely. Adrenaline, shock, and pure determination are nullifying my incoming headache though, Midoriya replies just a little too cheerfully. When they reach the outside, Midoriya slowly lowers Shoyuta onto a stretcher. Midoriya looks around. Yamada glances around and takes notice of the varying injuries of the present students. Koda has his right arm bandaged, Todoroki is holding an ice pack to his jaw, Yairo's head is bandaged, Ashido is nursing a bloody nose, and Azui has a thin blanket on her shoulders. Is everyone okay? Midoriya asks. The other students turn to him. Midobro, you need to get medical attention, Kirishima says and puts up his hands in a slight surrender. Please just tell me that everyone is okay. Please, Midoriya begs. Midoriya, it's okay. Everyone's okay. Everyone is receiving treatment for their wounds, Yamada assures him and puts his hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Midoriya bristles at the sudden contact. Midoriya suddenly turns to Yamada. What about 13-sensei? Will they be okay? Midoriya asks. A running down Midoriya's face. The tears are from the depths of Midoriya's heart. Midoriya grabs onto Yamada's shirt. Please just tell me they're all fine, Midoriya says softly. They're okay, Midoriya. 13's wounds weren't too bad and your involvement helped make sure that Shoyuta would get immediate medical attention. None of your classmates were fatally wounded, Yamada slowly reassures him. Midoriya looks up at him with hopeful eyes. You promise they'll be okay? Midoriya asks. His eyes are slowly losing focus. I promise, Yamada replies. Midoriya smiles as he collapses. Yamada quickly reaches out and manages to grab Midoriya. The jacket on Midoriya's left hand falls. Yamada pales as he notices the extent of the damage. The muscle is visible along with bits of bone. Both his ring finger and pinky are gone, leaving only stumps close to his hand. Blood trails down Midoriya's nostrils and there's a small cut on his left temple. Yamada easily picks up the kid bridal style and brings him to the ambulances. Midoriya's injuries weren't as bad as Shura's or 13's, but Midoriya likely still needed surgery for his hand. As the ambulances with Shoyuta and Midoriya zoom away, Yamada thinks about the things Midoriya said. That was the first time Yamada had heard Midoriya swear, but the circumstances definitely made the outburst justifiable. But Midoriya also showed just how selfless he could be. Yamada smiles sadly. Midoriya, You're very similar to Oboro. Please don't suffer the same fate as he did. When Izuku woke up, he didn't open his eyes. The first thing he registered was the sterile smell. Izuku opens his eyes to see a white ceiling. Oh, he's in the hospital. Izuku looks around, then glances at his left hand. There's a thick piece of gauze over the far left of his hand with bandages securing it. Izuku internally groans as he remembers what Tomura did. Tomura decided to disintegrate 2 of Izuku's fingers to push away suspicion from him. After all, who would suspect the poor kid who had 2 of fingers disintegrated during a villain attack? Izuku moves himself up more and looks around. It's light outside, so it's probably morning. Izuku becomes content staring out of the window for the next hour. The door opens, so Izuku looks over. There stands a man with a tan trench coat and Yamada-sensei. Yamada-sensei has half his hair down with the other half in a half ponytail. Hello. My name is Detective Tsukachi. I'd like to ask you some questions, the tan trench coat man says. Izuku looks over at Yamada-sensei with an unspoken question. I was visiting Shoyuda. I'm now here for moral support, Yamada-sensei explains. Izuku hesitantly nods. Tsukachi and Yamada-sensei sit down in 2 chairs. Izuku puts on a trembling smile. What do you want to know? Tsukachi doesn't know what he was expecting when he was told he had one last student to interview. This student being Midoriya Izuku. From what Toshinori said, the kid continued to stay by Aizawa's side despite his own injuries. So he had to deal with another self-sacrificing idiot. The kid on the hospital bed was nothing like Toshinori though. There was determination behind those scared eyes and shaky smile. Midoriya's smile was not meant to reassure others, it was meant to reassure himself. The poor kid obviously had some type of anxiety. Tsukachi gave a small smile to reassure Midoriya. A small bit of tenseness in Midoriya's shoulder vanished. Is your name Midoriya Izuku? Yes, true. Were you transported to the fire zone? That's correct, true. Can you recall everything that happened for the report? Of course. The villains came through a strange purple warp gate near the fountain. Aizawa-sensei told us to run, but we couldn't, true. Small trembles began running through Midoriya's small frame. The man made of mist, I think his name was Kurojiri, separated us to different zones. I was transported to the fire zone with Ojiro and Azui. I carried Azui while using my quirk to manipulate the air particles to keep us from fainting of heatstroke. When we made it to the plaza, we hid behind a bush. The handman noticed me, so I made Ojiro take Azui away. We fought. The handman managed to grab my left hand. Midoriya holds up his left hand, which is bandaged. He had a disintegration or decomposing quirk, true, and managed to yoink 2 of my fingers, true. Yamada blinks at how Midoriya describes it. Then Todoroki threw ice at the handman and handman was like, ha, beat you thought. Bakugo was like, Uno reverse card, and exploded at handman's jaw. Kirishima told me to go to the entrance, so I dragged Aizawa-sensei with me. Then All Might showed up, everything was true. Tsukachi was surprised at the boy's strange descriptions but still wrote everything down. All Might went against the deformed big bird, and I told him to aim for the right leg. All Might proceeded to yank off the right leg. Kaminari had given me his jacket to stop the bleeding on my hand while I checked if Aizawa-sensei had any fatal injuries. All Might yeeted the deformed big bird through the ceiling, then the pro-heroes arrived. After that, I remember passing out after worrying about my classmates. Tsukachi remembers seeing that Nomu for the first time. Midoriya's name of deformed big bird actually fit quite well. School's been closed for the next few days. It starts back up on Monday. You'll probably be discharged in a few hours when your current guardian appears to pick you up, Yamada explains. Midoriya blinks and bites his bottom lip. What if my main semi-responsible guardian isn't allowed to leave the house? Midoriya asks. Tsukachi is confused by how the kid worded it as main guardian. Why would your guardian be unable to pick you up? Yamada asks. He's on life support 24/7, Midoriya replies. Tsukachi coughs into his fist in an attempt to hide his surprise. Oh, Yamada says. Do you have anyone else that could pick you up? But think Toby will be to pick me up, but he is, by no means, my guardian. He is an adult but he is not responsible whatsoever, Midoriya says. True. Tsukachi remembers that there is no address on Midoriya Izuku's official file. Might as well get some answers. Do you currently live with this Toby person? Tsukachi asks. He's in the process of moving into our spare room but it's going really slow, Midoriya replies. Tsukachi smiles and shuts his notepad. I appreciate your cooperation in the investigation, Tsukachi says as he stands up. Midoriya smiles. I'm glad to help in any way I can, Detective Suki-san, Midoriya exclaims. Tsukachi and Yamada walk out of the room and Yamada carefully shuts the door. Tsukachi suddenly pauses. He called me Suki-san, Tsukachi realizes. Yamada snorts at the utterly lost expression Tsukachi is wearing. I don't think he even realized it, Yamada wheezed. Tenseness Tsukachi didn't know he had vanished. He somehow had the feeling he got whenever he just left interrogating a very calm villain. Those type of villains were the most dangerous. The ones who could pull the trigger without even blinking. They were just monsters wearing the skins of humans. Dabi was not impressed when Izuku contacted him with the following text. Green Psychopath 1436. Hey, Toby, I need someone to pick me up from the hospital. Bring me a change of clothes. That was code for, hide your scars and act like an older brother. The name, Toby, was a mix of Tuya and Dabi. He doesn't know how the hell Izuku knew his actual name but he trusts the brat. Dabi groaned when he got the message but still began the process of covering his burn scars with makeup. He added a black medical mask that covers the lower half of his face as a finishing touch. Dabi grabbed a plastic bag with a spare change of clothes that Izuku had always left in one of his kitchen cabinets. Dabi walked up to the reception desk with crinkled eyes to make it look like he was smiling. Hello, I'm here to pick up Midoriya Izuku. I'm his brotherly figure, Dabi says and internally cringes at how cheerful his voice sounds. Third floor, room 362, the woman behind the desk replies. Dabi walks to the elevator and clicks the button for floor 3. When he gets to the third floor, he passes a man with yellow hair and someone whose look just screamed, detective. Dabi knocks on the door then opens it. Izuku is sitting on a hospital bed. Dabi walks over and looks for any injuries. There's a piece of gauze medically taped to Izuku's forehead and bandages wrapped around his left hand. So, care to explain what the hell happened? Dabi asks. Izuku sighs. A bunch of villains attacked the USJ. 2 of my fingers no longer exist and I'll likely have a faint scar on my forehead, Izuku replies. Of course it was the League, Dabi grumbled underneath his breath and passed the bag to Izuku. Izuku grinned and hopped up. I'll be right back, Izuku says and goes to a small room off the hospital room, likely a bathroom. Dabi sighs and leans against the wall. A knock echoes on the door. The door is opened and there stands the yellow-haired man from the hallway. Hi, Dabi says. What else was he supposed to say? I'm Yamada Hizashi, Midoriya's English teacher. Are you Midoriya Izuku's guardian? The man asks. Dabi snorts. Hell no. Name's Kazue Toby, Dabi replies. He had chosen Kazu for his surname because it sounded like kazoo. As the idiot he is, he wanted his alias to be similar to a plastic instrument. So what do you need, Yamada-san? I wanted to know if Midoriya is in a stable home environment, Yamada says. There's an underlying threat in his tone that shows the teacher's concern for his student. So, Dabi does a Dabi and decides to F with him. Of course he is. The structure of our house is quite stable. It could likely survive a hurricane. You would need someone with all might strength to even put a hole in the wall. Yamada is apprehensive about the person in front of him. Kazue Toby is a man of a relatively average height with black hair and icy blue eyes. All his clothing are on the darker side of the color spectrum. His shirt is dark blue, his jeans are black, and his patchwork trench coat is black, gray, and dark purple. Kazue had given a strange answer to his question about Midoriya's living conditions. Is Midoriya living in a dangerous environment? Yamada asks. Kazue tilts his head to the side then shrugs. Nobody bothers us. Other than the occasional bar fights, we aren't at much risk, Kazue replies. Bar fights. First floor is a bar, second floor has the bedrooms, Kazue grumbles. The other door in the room opened. There stood Midoriya Izuku wearing a white shirt, jeans, and red sneakers. "Oi, your classmates left your bag for you," Kazue says and jabs his thumb at a yellow backpack on a chair. Yamada notices that Kazue wears black leather gloves. Likely a 5-point activation quirk, Yamada notes. Midoriya glances at the bag, then it flies at him. Midoriya picks it out of the air with his uninjured hand and smiles. Midoriya looks over and Yamada. "Do you need something, Yamada-sensei?" Midoriya asks. "I'm good, Midoriya. I just wanted to talk to Kazsen," Yamada replies and puts on a fake smile. Thankfully, Midoriya's obliviousness is helpful in this situation and he doesn't notice. "Toby, who is home right now?" Midoriya addresses Kazue. "Everyone. Everyone." Midoriya repeats. "Everyone. Even Blood Beach is worried about you," Kazue replies. "She's going to give me a makeover, isn't she?" Midoriya sighs. His tone is resigned. Kazue cackles and ruffles Midoriya's hair. "She brought her entire makeup bag to the bar and a sleeping bag," Kazue says once he stops laughing. "Sleepover?" Midoriya asks. He's bouncing on his feet. "Sleepover," Kazue confirms. Midoriya squeals and grabs both of Kazue's wrists. He forces Kazue to clap his hands together. "What are you doing?" "Kazue's." Yamada snorts. At how confused Kazue looks. Kazue glares at him, which makes Yamada's smile a little less forced. "Well, I can't exactly clap in excitement, therefore you are my hands." Midoriya exclaims. Kazue's eyes crinkle in amusement. "Guess you could say I'm coming in hand," Kazue says. "I guess you forget I can easily hand your butt to you in a sparring match," Midoriya retorts. Both of them look at each other for a moment before bursting out laughing. "That was horrible," Kazue exclaims. "I couldn't think of anything else," Midoriya mutters. "Well, we should get going." "It was nice meeting you, Yamada-san," Kazue says. Midoriya smiles and skips out of the room, pulling his backpack on along the way. Kazue puts his hand on Yamada's shoulder and lowers his medical mask. His lips are pulled into a grimace with far too many wrinkles to be natural appearing near the sides of his mouth. Yamada's breathing stills as he feels an overwhelming fear. This man is dangerous, Yamada thinks. "Yamada Hisashi, I will warn you now. If you ever put Izuku in harm's way, they will never find your body," Kazue says in a lower voice. He pulls back up his mask. "Have a nice day, Yamada-san," Kazue exclaims and walks after Midoriya. Yamada releases a breath he didn't know he was holding. He quickly pulls out his phone and types the name, InsomniaToad, into a note-taking app. There was something off about that man and Yamada would find out what that thing was. "Izuku," Kurogiri says. "Shigaraki is going to murder you," Izuku smiles. "It's called payback," Kurogiri. "He kept my middle finger, so I will give him the biggest F.U. I can manage," Izuku replies. "I wish it was easier for me to get drunk," Kurogiri sighs. "Whiskey's on the lower shelf," Izuku calls. Kurogiri blinks and appears behind the bar. As said, there is a bottle of whiskey underneath the counter. "Izuku, where did you get this?" Kurogiri asks. His tone is that of a disappointed parent. "Dabi!" Izuku exclaims. Izuku is currently sitting on a bar stool and bedazzling Tamura's father as the owner of the hand sleeps upstairs. The hand already has googly eyes, tinsel, and hot pink glitter. Suddenly, Toga Himiko ran down the stairs. She had lipstick in one hand and an eyeshadow palette in the other. "He's gonna get me," Himiko screeched. "Get back here," Tamura screamed. Tamura ran down the stairs with his hair messy. The strangest part of his appearance was the red lipstick and black eyeshadow. Tamura then noticed Izuku bedazzling father. "Izuku, what the F dash?" Tamura asks calmly. Himiko looks over at the hand and cackles. "It looks perfect," Himiko exclaims and claps her hands together. "You're both dead to me," Tamura groans. "Izuku, I have a gift for you," Sensei's voice drawls from the television. There's a hint of amusement in his voice. "But it's not my birthday?" Izuku points out. He hates how confused he sounds. "It's a gift for your success in Nomu," Sensei replies. It was thrown through the ceiling, Tamura says. Except it weakened All Might further. According to Izuku's past observations, All Might's time limit was around 3 hours. The strength of the Nomu hopefully lowered his time to an hour, Sensei explains. I can't wait to kill him, Izuku mutters. Kurogyri, please bring Izuku to me, Sensei says. As you wish, Sensei, Kurogyri replies and opens a warp gate next to Izuku. Izuku doesn't let his confusion show. The last time Sensei wanted a one-on-one meeting was when he asked for help with the Nomu. Izuku walks through the familiar cold that is a warp gate and is greeted by Sensei sitting on his chair. Except they are not alone. Kneeling on the ground with chains around his wrists and ankles is someone Izuku remembers all too well. Midoriya Hisashi. His black hair is matted with blood and his golden eyes are covered by a bandana. A cloth acts as a GG in his mouth. Where did you find him? Izuku asks. His throat is closing up and he's just barely holding back the urge to glare at Hisashi. He won't give that man the pleasure of seeing his unbridled hatred. An expensive apartment in Tokyo. Did you know he got remarried and killed one of his children? Anger flares throughout Izuku. Izuku walks over to Hisashi and rips off the BLNDFLD. He removes the GG. Hisashi's eyes are narrowed at disgust at Izuku. You quirkless piece of shit. Free me this instant. Hisashi shouts. Why did you kill one of your own children? Izuku asks. His voice cuts through the air with pure malice. Hisashi scoffs. That brat was just as worthless as you. The second I get out of here, I'll do the same thing to you as I did to that useless girl, Hisashi retorts. He's oblivious to how Izuku begins seeing red. I am not useless. I am one of the most dangerous villains in Japan. And I am the last person of your bloodline you'll be allowed to see, Izuku says. Izuku turns to Sensei. Get Kurogyri to bring this fucker to the bar. I think the others will have fun with him, Izuku says. Sensei seems to get the underlying threat that not even he would be able to stand in the way of Izuku's wrath. A warp gate appears behind Hisashi. Izuku roughly shoves Hisashi through it. The second they return to the bar, everyone takes one look at Izuku's face and tense up. Izuku's once viridian green irises are red. His lips are twisted into a snarl that shows off his sharpened canines. I'd like everyone to meet Midoriya Hisashi. He happens to be my dear father who spat on my mother's grave and murdered his own daughter for being quirkless, Izuku says. Izuku looks up at the sparse amount of patrons in the bar. There's only around 10 people in the entire bar including Izuku. Half of them of grabbing their weapons with white knuckles, the other half is shocked into silence. Sensei gave a quirk that resets his wounds every 2 minutes. Everyone has 2 minutes to torture him as they please. I will be the one to deliver the finishing blow. Himiko, you may start first, Izuku. Himiko stands up and glares at Hisashi. Himiko's knife glints threateningly. Izuku looks over at Kurogyri. Warp me to the apartment of Midoriya Hisashi. Sensei said, children, and not child, which means there is still a child in need, Izuku says. Kurogyri opens a warp gate next to Izuku and the latter does not hesitate to fling himself through it. Izuku is in the front hallway of an expensive-looking apartment. There's a console table with a photo of Hisashi kissing a woman with flowing black hair. Izuku scowls and walks further into the apartment. Muffled sobs bring Izuku to the door to a closet. Izuku opens the door to see a boy curled in on himself on the floor. Izuku kneels at his level. Hey, it's okay. I'm getting you out of here, Izuku says in a kind voice. He internally seethes as he notices the bruises peppering the boy's arms. Who are you? The boy stammers. The boy sounds too young to be in this much pain. My name is Izuku. I'm your older brother, Izuku replies. The boy brings down his arm a bit to reveal bright red eyes. BB, but Dad said why you were dead, the boy points out. Well, your dad is a filthy liar. Your dad is now also gone. I'm here to rescue you. What's your name? Izuku asks and tries to change the topic. Emikumo, the newly identified boy stutters. Izuku puts on the best reassuring smile he can. Well, Mikumo, I'm going to bring you to my house. Can I carry you? Mikumo hesitantly nods, then wraps himself onto Izuku's front. Mikumo nuzzles his face into Izuku's neck. Now Izuku can tell that Mikumo is about 4 or 5 years old. Right at the age to manifest a quirk. Hey Mikumo, do you have a favorite hero? Izuku asks as he stands up. Mikumo enthusiastically nods and looks up at Izuku with wide red eyes. My favorite hero is Gang Orca. He's a really cool hero. Mikumo exclaims. Izuku sighs in relief on the inside. Thank Christ it wasn't All Might. Why is Gang Orca your favorite? Izuku asks as he begins walking through the apartment. He looks really cool. The other kids thought he looked scary, but that's mean. You shouldn't judge someone based on their appearance. Mikumo exclaims and smiles. The woman from the photo stands up from the dining table. Who the F are you? The woman snarls. Mikumo tightens his grip on Izuku's jacket. I'm Midoriya Izuku. I believe Hisashi has talked about me before, Izuku says. His voice is completely calm and shows no fear. You're that quirkless freak Hisashi abandoned. He should have killed you. The woman screeched. Izuku's eyes glow light green with the telltale signs of his quirk. The woman suddenly GGS. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Izuku asks in a mocking voice. Mikumo glances out to see his mother choking on her tongue. What? Mikumo manages to stutter. Akatani Liya, wife of Midoriya Hisashi. You murdered Midoriya Inko but were never prosecuted because of a lack of evidence, Izuku says. What are you doing? Mikumo asks. Izuku tightens his grip on the child, gripping onto him for dear life. There's different types of heroes. There are heroes in it for the money, fame, and popularity. There are also heroes becoming heroes to help people and protect innocence. Anybody could do that without a license. Society calls us villains, but we are merely heroes in another way, Izuku explains. Izuku glares at Liya and tightens his telekinetic grip on the woman's tongue. But you, Akatani Liya, you are no better than a villain. You murdered an innocent mother because you were jealous. You used that tongue of yours to lie through your teeth. You used crocodile tears to turn the pity towards. You are nothing but a liar and heartless beach, Izuku says. Liya reaches up to her throat and claws at it. Small wisps of gray smoke come from her fingertips as she loses control of her quirk. Say hello to the devil for me, Izuku hisses and he tugs at his quirk. Liya's tongue is ripped from her mouth. Mikumo keeps his head tucked into Izuku's chest. Liya falls to her knees as she chokes on her blood. Izuku bares his teeth as Liya's heart is pulled through her chest. Liya falls onto her stomach. A small pool of blood forms underneath her. Izuku turns around and walks away from the body. It will okay, Mikumo. They'll never hurt you again. Your older brother will protect you, Izuku says as he sends his location to Kurojiri. Mikumo begins sobbing into Izuku's chest. Izuku keeps his arms protectively around the crying boy. A warp gate appears in front of the two. Izuku walks through and is greeted by Tamura over Hisashi with a fist raised. Blood pours from Hisashi's nose. All the other patrons that weren't in the main part of the league were no longer in the bar. Mikumo, you're safe now, Izuku says and kneels on the ground. Mikumo stands up but keeps his hand clenched on Izuku's sleeve. Mikumo looks around and his eyes land on Hisashi's beaten form. Mikumo whimpers and goes slightly closer to Izuku. He won't hurt me? Mikumo stammers. This BSRD will never hurt you again, Izuku says. Why you promise? Mikumo asks and looks up at Izuku with hopeful eyes. I promise. Nobody deserves to be hurt like you. Whether a person has a villainous quirk, a weak quirk, or no quirk at all, there is no excuse to hurt them. As long as I'm here, you won't be hurt again, Izuku promises. Mikumo wraps his arms around Izuku in a tight hug as if when he lets go, Izuku would vanish. Izuku wraps his arms around the boy and glares at Hisashi. How dare he hurt such an adorable child? Izuku flips up his middle finger at Hisashi behind Mikumo's back. Kurojiri barely hides a chuckle at the sight while Dabi doesn't even try to hide his snort. Izuku opens his mouth and mouths the words, "That Hisashi." Izuku stands up with Mikumo still in his arms. Mikumo is wrapped around Izuku's torso like a koala bear. Kurogiri, can you warp some bandages and food up to my room? I'm going to spend some time with Mikumo, Izuku asks. Kurogiri nods. Izuku walks up the stairs to his room with one thought. Hisashi and Leah would never hurt Mikumo again. And if Izuku fell asleep with Mikumo hugging him, nobody needed to know. Midoriya is distracted today. Aizawa was able to tell that from the second the boy walked into the classroom. Midoriya kept zoning out and glancing at his bag like something was hidden in it. Halfway through homeroom, Aizawa sits in the corner and watches over the class like a hawk. Classmates talk to each other. Midoriya continues to glance at his bag, and Bakugo snarls. Bakugo stands up and lands a controlled explosion on Midoriya's desk. Midoriya flinches and looks up. Why the hell do you keep looking at your effing bag? What could a shitty nerd like you even have? Bakugo shouts and rips the bag from Midoriya's chair. Don't. Midoriya begs. Bakugo opens the bag and yanks out a bouquet. The bouquet is a strange mix of a few flowers. Aizawa recognizes all the flowers though. A pink carnation, a daisy, a purple and a white hyacinth, and a red rose. Heh. Why the F are you bringing flowers to school, Deku? Bakugo demands. They going to your girlfriend? Tears are welling up in Midoriya's eyes. No, Midoriya whispers. Then who? Bakugo shouts. Hey man, I think that's enough, Kirishima says and slowly puts a hand on Bakugo's shoulder. Bakugo rips himself from Kirishima's grip. Not until the shitty nerd tells me who the F is getting flowers, Bakugo retorts. Midoriya stands up and glares at Bakugo with unshed tears glistening in his eyes. The flowers are for my dead little sister, Midoriya hisses and snatches the bag from Bakugo. Midoriya rushes out of the classroom with tears beginning to run down his face. Bakubro, that wasn't very manly, Kirishima says, breaking the silence. Kaminari stands up. I'm going after him, Kaminari announces and leaves the classroom. Aizawa is knocked out of his minor shock. Bakugo, a student's belongings is none of your concern. I ask that you refrain from stealing a classmate's bag to search their belongings, Aizawa says. His voice sounds emotionless but everyone can feel the underlying threat. Shinso Hitoshi was just walking around the hallways when he heard something strange. Sounds were everywhere on campus because of the variety of quirks, but last time he checked, there were no quirks that related to crying. Curiosity gets the better of him, so Shinso goes investigate. A green-haired boy is curled up with his knees near his face. His body is trembling as sobs rack his figure. A yellow bag is next to him with a small bouquet of flowers slightly falling out. The boy seems to be a first year. Shinso reaches out then pauses. If the boy was having a panic attack, it wouldn't be wise to touch him. Hey, can you hear me? Shinso asks. His quirk thrums through his tongue. The boy nods. Shinso internally grimaces. His quirk wouldn't work without verbal response. Can you talk to me? Shinso asks. H asked about the F flowers. The boy manages to whisper. Shinso snags control of the boy's mind. Calm down, Shinso commands. The boy's breathing evens and his tears stop. Shinso releases control. Was that your quirk? The boy asks. Yes, Shinso says through gritted teeth. He prepares for the insults and disgust, but it never comes. It's a really good quirk, the boy says. Shinso looks up and takes in the boy's appearance. If he had to describe the boy in one word, it would be tired. The boy's viridian eyes have specks of red in the irises with small bruises forming from a lack of sleep. His green hair is curly and it's black near the roots. Freckles are dotted across his cheeks and nose. What's your name? Shinso asks before he can stop himself. Izuku. Midoriya Izuku, the now identified Midoriya replies. Shinso Hitoshi, Shinso says. What's your quirk called? Midoriya asks. It's called brainwashing. If a person verbally responds to my questions, I can take control of them, Shinso replies. Midoriya puts his bouquet back into his bag. Shinso takes notice of the bandages on the boy's left hand and a missing spot for two of his fingers. My quirk is called push and pull. If I look at something, I'm able to move it with my mind, Midoriya suddenly says. If you don't mind me asking, What happened? Shinso asks. Midoriya's mood slightly dampens. I found out I had a little sister. Apparently my dad killed her. One of my classmates stole my bag and asked why I had flowers. I snapped that it was for my dead little sister and I just ran, Midoriya explains. Shinso then feels bad for asking. I'm sorry for asking, Shinso says. It's alright. You were curious, Midoriya assures him. The greenette's smile is just so tired. It isn't the tiredness of not sleeping, it's the tiredness of beginning to give up on the world. Shinso stands up and holds out his hand. Midoriya reaches out and grabs Shinso's offered hand. Shinso knows that he is not strong, so it comes as a surprise when he easily pulls up Midoriya. Midoriya, do you think I'll be a good hero? Shinso asks. Midoriya pulls his bag onto his shoulder. You're already my hero, Shinso. Nobody else was there for me but you, Midoriya says, and his smile brightens. Feel free to join me at lunch. I would love to talk to you more, Midoriya says and walks away, leaving a shocked Shinso. Shinso opens his mouth and says the first question he had. Why was he so cute? Later that day, Midoriya Izuku kneels in front of a gravestone. I'm sorry I couldn't save you on time. I promise I'll do what I can for Mikumo. I will protect him for you, Izuku says and puts the bouquet on the dirt. Izuku traces the name on the grave with his right pointer finger. The name reads, Akitani Nora. The ghost of a young girl hugs the green-haired boy sobbing over her resting place. The Udata Sports Festival. A glorified battle between teenagers in the name of competition. All for One sits in the bar, with his life support humming at his lap. Izuku, or as Tamura called the boy Little Creator, had created an invention that allowed All for One to breathe better while repairing his respiratory system in the process. Currently, All for One could walk without help for a full hour thanks to Izuku's intervention. He truly was grateful to the young boy. It's starting! Tamura exclaims and frantically scratches his neck. Meet the class that survived a villain attack, Class 1A. Present Mick's voice booms over the stadium. All for One groans at the loud blonde's voice. And you're telling me that overgrown cockatoo is Izuku's English teacher? All for One asks. Dabi shrugs. I have no clue how the hell it's possible, but yeah, Dabi replies. The entire league is sitting on an L-shaped couch while the bar is closed. The only person missing was Izuku himself. The league consisted of Dabi, Tamura, Toga, Spinner, Twice, Mr. Compress, Mustard, Magna, and All for One himself. Jiren had also helped recruit Muscular and Moonfish, but All for One didn't trust the two as he did with the rest of the league. I found Izunai. Mikumo exclaims and points at the screen. Mikumo looks back at All for One. Mr. Sensei, do you think Izunai will win? Mikumo asks. All for One smiles. I know he will. And the student representative is Midoriya Izuku. Izuku is absolutely underprepared to deliver a speech. What was he supposed to say? He watched some of the older sports festivals and the opening speeches were often short and to the point. Only one person, by the name of Yagi Tashinori, had delivered a 6-minute-long speech about the importance of teamwork and trying your best. The crowd was nearly asleep by the end of it. Izuku still walks to the podium and grabs the microphone. He takes a deep breath to stabilize himself. His family was watching. He couldn't let them down. Everyone here is trying their best. The hero courses, the business course, the support course, and general education. This is a competition for all courses. Villainous quirks, weak quirks, or even quirkless, each course has at least one person who was insulted for having such quirks. Izuku looks right into the camera of the drone projecting his face onto televisions across the world. Nobody is worthless or useless. No course is less than another. No person should be treated like they are nothing. Today everyone is giving their best. If their best isn't enough, then we will try harder and be better. Izuku raises his right fist in the air with a determined air around him. Go beyond, plus ultra, Izuku says. The crowds of people echo, plus ultra, with their fists in the air. The other courses have different looks of determination. Izuku grins as he walks off stage. The league is cheering at their headquarters with various encouragements. That's our Izukuin. Toga. That was so inspiring. It effing twice. Little creator can make good speeches, Tamura. He literally made that speech up on the spot. Also, when could he speak that slowly? All for one. Don't kill anybody. W. One small voice is louder than the rest though. Kick their buttes, Izuku. Mikumo shouts. Dabi holds up his hand and Mikumo gives him a high five. What are you teaching that kid? Kurogyari asks, admonished by the 5-year-old's language. It's called swearing, Kurogyari, Dabi retorts. Mikumo is completely enamored by his older brother on the television. Hey, Nijire, Tamaki, come look at this, Togata Mirio says and waves over his friends to show them the live video on his phone. Nijire skips over and peers at the phone. Ooh, the first years? Nijire asks. Midoriya Izuku. Tamaki mutters. Tamaki frowns as he notices the greenette is missing 2 of the fingers on his left hand. Nobody is worthless or useless, the boy's voice echoes. Nijire cheers. I like him already. Nijire exclaims. Go beyond, plus ultra, the boy concludes. Plus ultra. Nijire shouts and puts her fist in the air. Togata's smile widens at the boy's determination. They're going to make this year's sports festival very interesting. The first competition is an obstacle course. Izuku's face is split into a maniac smile. Go! Present Mick's voice screams. Izuku doesn't need to be told twice. Many things happen in that second. Todoroki freezes a bunch of people's feet, Kaminari hoists himself onto the shoulders of an unsuspecting heroic student, Bakugo screams, and Izuku jumps up and grabs a pipe at the ceiling of the tunnel. Izuku flings himself past the ice and begins sprinting. And our first obstacle is the Robo Inferno. Mike announces. Izuku was suddenly greeted by many 0-pointers. Nedzu, you mad rodent, Izuku mutters under his breath. Izuku simply runs over the ice. Thank God he added traction to the soles of his sneakers. Izuku lands in a roll and continues running. Izuku, pass me a rod. A familiar voice shouts. Izuku scoops a small metal rod from one of the 0-pointers and throws it at Kaminari. Thanks. Kaminari shouts and discharges electricity as he lodges the rod into a brown-haired girl's back. The girl's eyes slightly widen, then she spasms and collapses. The second obstacle is the fall. If you fall, you're disqualified. Present Mike announces. Izuku sees the thin ropes going across a pit and internally scoffs. He had to use a scalpel so often that grace and fluidity were practically carved into his soul. Izuku simply runs across the ropes without losing any pace. And Class 1, as Midoriya Izuku showcases his skill in running across the fall. What are you teaching that kid, Eraser? That one came like that. No returns unfortunately, a completely deadpan voice replies. I saved your life. Izuku shouts and shoots a glare at the commentator's box. You do know the little listener overused his quirk to get you medical attention, right? Present Mike points out. Let me sleep, Aizawa says after a pause. Present Mike laughs and continues. Commentating. And the final obstacle is here. It's a minefield. The explosions won't kill you, but they do pack a punch. Present Mike announces. Allow me to reiterate, what the actual Nedzu? Izuku grumbles. Izuku stops and looks over the minefield. A grin spreads across his face as he sees that all the mines are in his field of view. What is he waiting for? Dabi asks. He's on the edge of his seat. All for One grins. He has a plan, All for One says. He's going to blow something up, Mustard realizes. Oh God, those are landmines, oh dear, Spinner says. That's so dumb. He's effing insane. Twice exclaims. On screen, Midoriya Izuku uses a giant slab of metal and throws himself on the careful pile of landmines he discreetly collected with his quirk. He's blowing himself up? Mustard asks. Izuku-kun, I love you, but sometimes you're an idiot, Toga sighs. He does this often? Mr. Compress asks. Izuku can be quite impulsive at times. We love him and his eccentricities though, All for One replies. Little creator plans everything though. He doesn't seem impulsive, Shigaraki points out. You haven't seen Izuku coming back to the bar at 2 in the morning covered in blood, then proceeding to repeatedly stab an All Might poster for a full hour while muttering about various torture methods for Epiphle, Kurogyri says. His mist flared out at the memory. Look! Mikumo shouts and excitedly points at the screen. Izuku stands still a few feet from the finish line, then walks over it after 2 others pass. All for one snorts. He could have got first place but didn't, just to screw with that blonde boy, All for One explains. Is that little creator's Kaken? Shigaraki asks. Zu described him as an exploding beach with spiky but blonde hair, so I think so, Mustard says. He brings his can of soda to his mouth and takes a sip. Mustard's newly modified gas mask is innocently hung around Mustard's neck. It covers the lower half of his face and has 2 knobs to moderate carbon dioxide and oxygen. His eyes would be covered by a pair of modified black goggles with purple lens. Mustard was eternally grateful for Izuku's intervention in his issues with his quirk. Bakugo Katsuki. He'd be a great example to Hero Society if Izuku decides to kill him, All for One muses. Dabi chuckles. Knowing Aizu, he'll probably psychologically hurt that blonde beach until the kid is murdered, Dabi says. We blonde beaches do not claim him. Toga exclaims. Izuku is later confronted by Bakugo. Bakugo rams him against the wall in an unmanned hallway with his hand around Izuku's front. What was that sheet, Deku? Bakugo snarls. Izuku subtly glances around for any cameras. He allows his signature maniac grin to appear on his face when he sees there are none. Izuku reaches out and grabs Bakugo's wrist. Now, Kaken. Is that any way for a hero to act? Izuku spits out the word, hero, like it's poison. What the hell are you on, Deku? Bakugo snaps. Izuku kicks out his foot and hooks it around Bakugo's ankle. Izuku is now the one pinning Bakugo against the wall. Bakugo's face is smashed into the wall with his signature snarl quivering. What the f are doing, Deku? Bakugo demands. Izuku clicks his tongue. That language isn't very hero-like now, is it? Izuku breathes. Izuku raises the butterfly knife he had hidden in his shoe. What is your opinion on the so-called Baku Squad? Izuku asks. They're just shitty extras following after me because I'm the best. Bakugo retorts. Izuku smiles. So, how would you feel if one of them died? Izuku inquires. Like hell you could kill them. You're just shitty worthless, Deku, Bakugo points out. Every person has their weaknesses. Ida cannot take turns well. Aizawa-sensei's optical nerves are weakened from his quirk's nature. Ashido's skin gets dehydrated if she uses too much acid, and Kirishima's quirk relies on his stamina. If you extort those weaknesses, you could be practically unstoppable, Izuku exclaims. His voice takes on a slightly hysterical edge. No quirk makes someone invincible. Even you have your weaknesses. You always lead with a right hook, you always keep your left thigh wide open for an attack, your wrists and shoulders take most of the backlash from your quirk, and the glands in your wrists are always so vulnerable. You're just so predictable. Izuku exclaims. Bakugo is pale by the end of Izuku's little speech. What did you do to Deku? Bakugo asks. Izuku grins and pushes Bakugo's face further into the wall. Don't you see, Kaken? The Deku you knew is dead. And you were the one to kill me. Izuku exclaims. Izuku lets go of Bakugo and takes a few steps back. Bakugo whips around and his eyes widen as he sees Izuku's appearance. Izuku's viridian eyes have more red specks and his pupils are dilated from mania. His butterfly knife's blade glints in the lights. Izuku is smiling with his canines pricking his bottom lip. His shoulders are tensed and his back is hunched. What the F is wrong with you, Deku? Bakugo demands. Izuku laughs. Oh, Kaken. Nothing is wrong with me. I've seen the truth of this society. Have you seen just interesting quirks are? The insides of them are just so interesting. And quirks are just everywhere. Just think of how much data I could collect. Izuku rambles. You're effing insane. Bakugo shouts and begins running. Coward! Izuku shouts after him. F you! Bakugo calls. Izuku rolls his eyes. Doesn't he know I'm single? Izuku mutters. Izuku glances at the nearby clock. Izuku's smile becomes slightly sadder. The show is about to begin. Why? He manages to ask through his choked sobs. I'm loyal. Trust me, I'd like to study your quirk before I had to do this. Time is sparse though. The boy screams into the quirk scientist's hand as the greenette stabs his knife into the boy's sternum. You were one of the first real friends I had out of the league. I'm sorry it had to end like this. And next match we have the 6-armed hero student Shoji Mizo on one side. Shoji walks out on the left side. On the other side we have the lovable idiot of the same course, Kaminari Denki. But nobody comes out of the tunnel. Then someone in a white hooded lab coat and a black medical mask walks out. The most shocking part is that he's dragging Kaminari Denki's body behind him. Izawa Shota and all the pro heroes immediately recognize this person as the quirk scientist. The quirk scientist wears 3-inch wedge high heel black boots, tight denim jeans, a maroon button-up tucked into his pants, and a white lab coat with a hood covering his hair. A steel mask with slits near the mouth covers the lower half of his face. The microphones crack with static. Hello, citizens of Japan. I am the quirk scientist. A distorted voice rings out over the stadium. Mutters and murmurs break out in the crowd. The pro heroes in the audience pale as they recognize the name. You have not heard of me, as the Hero Commission and police have hidden my existence from the public. I am a villain known as the quirk scientist. I have killed 3 UA students as of now. My goal is to simply research quirks. I find mutation and transformation quirks quite fascinating. There's an undertone of amusement in his voice that sends shivers down everyone's spines. The quirk scientist reaches down and picks up Kaminari by his neck. Do you see this, society? Your heroes allowed me, a murderer and psychopath, to get into the sports festival with no issues. Just think of how easy it would be for another incident like the USJ to happen in any other of UA's facilities. Gasps run through the crowd. Kaminari's eyes are dull and dried tears stain his cheeks. Blood trails down his front where a deep stab wound lays in his sternum. His feet hang limply from how he's being carried. I ask you this, how does it make you feel that I have managed to break into such a guarded event? How do you feel that I have killed 3 heroes in training? How do you feel that the police have covered these facts up? The quirk scientist drops Kaminari onto the ground. I am here and I will tear this society to the ground, the quirk scientist announces. He leaves through a warp gate. The microphones crackle back to life. Everyone needs to evacuate now. I repeat, get out of here immediately in a calm and orderly manner. Present Mike says. Izawa can't help the rage pooling inside him. That monster was killing his class and Izawa was too weak to stop him. Izawa was too scared to face that monster. And for his fears, his class was paying the price with their lives. Togata's smile is gone as he sees the broadcast of the sports festival. Nijire's eyes are wide and Tamaki is trembling. We're going there now, Togata says. Are you sure? I don't want to get in the way, Tamaki points out. The pro heroes will need help evacuating civilians. If anyone is in shock, we'll have to help get them out, Togata says. His smile has returned. The 3 immediately begin walking towards the stadium. Then it's a run. Then Togata and Tamaki are sprinting while Nijire uses her quirk to propel herself. They hope they aren't too late. Fire. The stadium the sports festival is being held in is on fire. This is not normal fire. The fire is blue. Something's wrong though. All for one's quirks are flaring up with the feeling of danger. Dabi, are you sure you only ignited the indoors? All for One asks. I did. The place was just more flammable than I thought it was, Dabi retorts. What about Mikumo? I dropped off the brat as a child that separated from their mom and dad. All for One can't help the feeling that one of the quirks he had given someone was about to be used past its intended limits. It's okay, Izuku mutters. It is not okay. Fire surrounds him and he can already feel the smoke getting to him. Oh, did he mention he has 4 children clinging to him? Because he does. Midoriya Izuku, the quirk scientist, a well-known villain, a murderer, and monster in his own right, has children relying on him. Izuku doesn't know what the F he's supposed to do. Not only does Izuku have 4 children with him, they're trapped in a corner by burning rubble. Izuku, what's happening? Mikumo asks. Did Izuku mention that one of the children was Mikumo? He was going to wring Dabi's neck when he got home. Is anyone here? Someone asks. It sounds like a man. We're over here. Izuku shouts. Mikumo clings to his chest tighter. Izuku coughs as more smoke makes its way into Izuku's lungs. He hopes that this hero is at least kind enough to get them out. Amajiki Tamaki was a simple person. He had social anxiety, he was part of UA's Big Three, he had a decent quirk, and he had a loving family. He expected many things to come in hero work, but that never makes some things easier. Having to go up to a mourning mother and confirm that her only son was killed in a villain attack, raiding a base of quirk traffickers, and many more things were still hard on his psyche. The second he heard the reply that someone was trapped, Tamaki spurred into action and ran into the flames. He manifested his fingers into tentacles and began ripping away the rubble, careful to not damage the structural integrity. There sits a first-year student with 4 children clinging to him. Tamaki recognizes the boy as Midoriya Izuku from the opening speech. So, you gonna help get us out of here or what? Midoriya asks. His voice is rough from smoke inhalation. Tamaki meets Midoriya's eyes to see that same determination from his speech on Midoriya's expression. Do you think your quirk can help us? Tamaki hesitantly asks. He remembers seeing Midoriya flinging himself on the minefield, but he hadn't seen any physical manifestation of a quirk. I can make us a path through the fire. I just need you to cover us from any rubble, Midoriya says and wheezes. The black-haired child buries his face further into the crook of Midoriya's neck. Midoriya stumbles to his feet with 2 children clinging to his front and 2 to his back. Hey, you have hang on tight, okay? We're getting out of here, Midoriya says reassuringly. But Izuku, the fire. The black-haired boy exclaims. So the boy was his little brother. Midoriya smiles as white cracks begin coming from his eyes. Not a problem. The next thing Tamaki knows is that the fire booms and is suddenly pushed out. Izuku is eternally grateful to Sensei for giving him this quirk. He hadn't expected to use this so early, but a certain burn victim decided to ignite the stadium. This quirk was called as the name suggested. It gave the user the ability to see in all directions. It was originally a mutation quirk, but the quirk itself mutated to fit around push and pull. Combined, 360 and push and pull made a deadly combination since push and pull relied on my field of vision. And if anyone asked about the sudden development in his quirk, Izuku could simply say it was a special move he had been practicing. Izuku can feel the little girl on his back trembling. Just keep your head close to me, okay kids? It might get a little hot, but whatever you do, you cannot breathe, Izuku says. His voice is beginning to subtly change to the tone he uses when he presents a particularly important strategy to the league. But one of the kids begins stammering. No buts. We will either die from the fire or from smoke inhalation otherwise. Your choice, Izuku interrupts. Izuku glances at the dark-haired boy with tentacles for fingers. The boy's smile is shaky and he seems to have trouble speaking. Izuku returns a smile as the energy in his face gains a slight glow. Keep your eyes near the ceiling too. It's likely the fire has already damaged the weaker parts of the stadium, Izuku says. The boy, Izuku should get his name soon, nods and begins slowly walking. Izuku suddenly hears a soft cracking. If it weren't for his enhanced senses, Izuku probably wouldn't have heard the sound at all. Move! Izuku screams as the ceiling breaks. Many things happen at once. The little girl screams. Mikumo tightens his grip. The tentacle boy jumps out of the way. And Izuku's restraints shatter. Tamaki wasn't expecting the rubble to blast away. Every tendon in Midoriya's arms are tensed around the children clinging to him. We have to go now. Midoriya shouts. His voice is forceful and practically commands respect. So Tamaki steals his nerves and nods. The two begin running towards the exit. Both effortlessly weave through pieces of rubble. Tamaki keeps his jacket at his nose and mouth to prevent needless smoke from entering his lungs. Speaking of the smoke, it's currently moving in a spiral pattern at the ceiling. The rubble blocking the exit is yanked out of the way by an invisible pull. A glance at Midoriya's strained smile confirms that the greenette was responsible. The two run out of the exit and Midoriya takes measured breaths. Tamaki can only release a breath of relief. Midoriya Izuku jogs over to his class and Yamada with 4 children on him. Yamada takes notices of the soot covering Midoriya's shoulders and the white cracks coming from his eyes. Blood comes down from Midoriya's nostrils and mixes with his smile. Midoriya, are you okay? Yamada asks. I'll be fine, Midoriya says. Midoriya twists so Yamada grabs one of the children from the teen. Midoriya kneels and puts down the other kids. Alright, the heroes are going to help you find your parents. If you're hurt, the paramedics will you, okay? It's okay now, Midoriya says. His voice is calming and his gentle smile is stained by blood. Izuku, you're bleeding. The black-haired boy exclaims. Now that Yamada looks closer, he can see the similarities between the two. I'll be okay, Mikumo. Yamada-sensei will watch you for a few minutes. Some people need help, Midoriya replies and ruffles the boy's hair. Midoriya stands back up. Midoriya, you can't go back in there. Yamada argues. My quirk is able to deal with the flames and there are still people trapped inside. I'm able to track where the trapped victims are. Your voice attacks could damage the structure. Please, Yamada-sensei, let me help, Midoriya retorts. The white cracks on Midoriya's face seem to brighten even more. It looks like his face is breaking apart. Yamada hesitantly gulps then steels himself. On behalf of UA, I give Midoriya Izuku full permission to interfere, Yamada easily recites. It was a phrase engraved into his mind but he had never expected to use it so early into the year. Yamada's eyes are hardened with determination. Don't push yourself too hard, little listener, Yamada says. Midoriya's eyes gain a mischievous glint. No promises, Midoriya replies. As Yamada sees Midoriya Izuku carry out person after person, he can't help the pride swelling inside him. Yamada knew one thing was for sure. Midoriya Izuku was going to be a DMN good hero. He didn't know how wrong he was until the greenette stands over him covered in blood with that smile. Jiru Kyoka hadn't meant to overhear it. Everyone thought her quirk was an invasion of privacy since she could overhear any private conversation. She could hear a person's playlist, she could hear someone confessing to cheating on their spouse, she could hear people telling each other secrets. She learned early on in life that she wasn't supposed to tell others about such secrets. She never thought she'd hear such a conversation in school. It was supposed to be a normal day. Everyone was lunch when Kyoka decided to walk around the hallways to escape the noise. Then she heard it. Why did you have to kill him? It's a high-pitched voice and is filled with desperation. A small laugh comes from the other person. Why, it was the only way, of course. Besides, he was becoming too cocky. He was going to sell us out, the other voice drawls. Kyoka gets the impression that she isn't supposed to be hearing this conversation. She still pauses and listens though. Did you know every single day, Denki went home and was dropping not-so-subtle clues that he was a traitor to his older sister? His mother should be getting arrested any second for child neglect. His sister's corpse should be found within a few hours. Himiko was just great at hiding it. The boy exclaims. That amused tone of voice sends chills down Kyoka's spine. He was our friend, the girl hisses. He was a traitor, the boy retorts. As are you to remember that I do not hesitate to kill traitors. This is a lesson that you should never forget. Kyoka barely holds back a gasp at the name reveal. Kyoka runs to the teacher's lounge to report her findings. Aizawa-sensei, you have to believe me. I know what I heard. Jiru says as she grabs onto Aizawa's shirt. Aizawa Shoyuta was just trying to nap in the teacher's lounge when Jiru Kyoka ran in and requested to speak to him. Now she brought this to him. Jiru, I understand your concern. If you're sure that that's what you heard dash. I am sure. Then I will keep an extra eye on Hagakure from now on, Aizawa replies. Jiru looks up to him with a barely concealed anger. What about the other person? He's too smart. He was stalking Kaminari. Jiru points out. Was his name revealed? Jiru flinches. We can't just question every boy in the school until we find the offender. You do understand that, right? I do, sense. But how many more of us have to die? How many of us have to die before you catch them? Something churns in Aizawa's gut. I promise that we'll catch him. I won't let any more of you die. Izuku skips away from where he was listening in to their conversation. Everything was going according to plan. Izuku doesn't even try to hide the giggle that bubbles in his throat. Oh, how he wondered what the inside of Jairu's ear jacks looked like. But he would have to wait until after school. That's when he would have his fun. Her corpse is splayed out across the classroom floor. Her elbows are broken and bent backwards. Her feet are awkwardly angled out. Her mouth is opened in a soundless scream. Her dark purple eyes are dull and lifeless. Her heart is out of her chest and the heart is still moist. The words, "You promised," are scrawled in her blood at her feet. Jairu Kyoka's corpse is found at 5:20 a.m. by one Aizawa Shoyuda. Izuku, why are you killing your classmates? Mikumo asks. Mikumo is looking up at Izuku with those wide red eyes from his spot on the bar floor. Izuku walks over and goes on one knee in front of him. Mikumo, why do you think Gang Orca is a good hero? Izuku asks. Because he always saves people. Despite what he looks like, he's a hero. Mikumo happily exclaims. Izuku's blood runs slightly warmer as he asks his next question. Mikumo, what do you think of All Might? Izuku asks. Mikumo frowns. He's a good hero, but he's one person. People rely on him too much, Mikumo says. Well, All Might isn't as good of a hero as the public makes him out to be. You're right. He's one person. And All Might is hurt. He's running himself into the ground at the current rate he's going at, Izuku explains. Why does the League want to kill him? Mikumo asks. Izuku gently smiles. I'm going to tell a story of two brothers. One for all and all for one. Izuku. Yes. What happens if you're caught? Then you'll just have to break me out. You're my little hero. Izuku, can I sleep next to you? Of course you can. Kurojari finds the two snuggled together in the morning. Mikumo's arms are wrapped around Izuku's midsection and Izuku's right arm protectively underneath him and his left hand is buried in Mikumo's hair. Kurojari's eyes crinkle in amusement as he shuts the door. He would let them wake up on their own. Izuku, I wanted to give you something, Sensei's voice drawls over the monitor. The current League members nervously glance at the screen. Izuku, not reading the mood, looks over at the monitor with an unimpressed brow raised. What is it? Izuku asks. I found a quirk I believe would suit your needs. Kurojari, you may warp him here if Izuku's ready, Sensei says. Izuku looks over at Kurojari and nods with a barely concealed excitement. Kurojari opens a warp but can't help the anxiety building up in him. Izuku walks through the warp gate and is greeted by the large figure of Sensei in his chair. How's the respirator treating you? Izuku asks. Sensei gives a gentle smile with no malice. Your intelligence never ceases to surprise me. I can currently walk for an hour and 50 minutes without support, Sensei replies. Izuku grins. I'm glad. Maybe I can work on my prosthetics next, Izuku suggests with that gleam in his eyes that shows he's already making mental blueprints. Sensei chuckles at the pure chaos that is Izuku's mind. Izuku, are you sure you want this quirk? Sensei, his voice is suddenly serious and all the past humor is gone. Izuku looks up to him with his viridian eyes steeled by sheer willpower. I'm sure. It will help me accomplish my goals and erase future suspicion on me, Izuku confirms. Sensei reaches out his hand. Izuku reaches out and puts his hand on Sensei's palm. Izuku winces as the familiar feeling of his DNA being altered takes hold. Izuku doesn't scream this time. Instead he bites down the tip of his tongue. When the feeling of molten lava pouring through his bloodstream stops, Izuku removes his hand. Are you all right? Sensei asks and keeps his hand ready in case Izuku collapses. Izuku blinks a few times and takes a wobbly step backwards. I feel like someone just threw me into an oven then shoved me into a freezer. I'm definitely going to have a headache very soon though, Izuku says and looks up. Izuku freezes as he realizes that his vision is different. Sensei, these lights, they're quirks, aren't they? Izuku slowly asks. Sensei's light is warbled with conflicting textures, Some of the lights are cold, some are warm, one is slippery like it's underwater. They are. I put 2 quirks on you in fact. The quirk you're currently experiencing is to prepare you for when you receive my quirk, Sensei says. You're giving me your quirk? Izuku skeptically asks. What about Tomo-chan? What about him? Izuku. I've intended to make you my successor since the beginning. You have the strategic mind perfect that can rival Netsu. You have the determination to rival All Might. Izuku, I believed in you since you first came to us as that 10-year-old who had just ran away. I believe you can use my own quirk better than me, Sensei explains. Tears well up in Izuku's eyes. Once a Midoriya, always a Midoriya. Izuku runs forward and wraps his arms around Sensei's torso. Did you really mean that? Izuku manages to ask through his tears. Sensei puts his right hand in Izuku's hair and puts his left hand on Izuku's back. I do, Izuku. I have always believed in you and I will never stop doing so. Izuku, you're like a son to me. I could never not support you, Sensei replies. Izuku's body trembles as he sobs. Soon, Izuku pulls away. It would be an honor to be your successor, Sensei, Izuku says with a smile. Sensei returns the smile with one of his own. Later that night, Izuku walks around the city with Mikumo on his back, Himiko to right and Mustard to his left. Then I just stabbed him. Ooh, you should have seen him bleed, Izuku-an. His blood wasn't as good as yours though. Nobody's blood is as good as yours. Himiko finishes as she skips. Mikumo pokes another rainbow sticker and giggles when he thinks Izuku doesn't notice. Izuku does notice, he just wants his little brother to be happy. Izuku ignores the pressure forming in his head. Suddenly, Himiko's eyes widen and she glares behind her. There stands one, as seat number 19, Mineta Minoru, grabbing and staring at Himiko's backside with lust-filled eyes. Himiko's right eye twitches in agitation. So thick dash, Mineta begins muttering other various things. Izuku's knuckles are white with how tight he's holding onto Mikumo. Witnesses, Izuku was going to end the Grape Beach assaulting his sister. His headache, he would rip off Mineta's scalp. Nobody messed with his family and got away with it. Sir, the Quirk scientist broke in. A rookie officer shouts. His chest heaves as if he ran all the way to Tsukachi Naomesa's office. Which the officer probably did. Then the reality of the situation hits Tsukachi. The Quirk scientist had broken into the police station. A villain. Breaking into a police station. Well, the Quirk scientist was a maniac, but this still didn't make sense. Where? Tsukachi quickly asks as he stands up. File room. Whisper and Kemui Woods are already there, the officer breathes out. Tsukachi sprints to the file room and pushes past the other officers to see the Quirk scientist sitting cross-legged on the ground. He looks almost natural there if it wasn't for the corpse on either side of him. Some of the newer officers are looking at gory body on the Quirk scientists left with pale faces and wide eyes. What are you doing here? Tsukachi asks in a strained voice. Even he is having a hard time avoiding looking the mangled corpse. I have an offer for you. You may ask me 5 questions that I will answer to the best of my ability. Does that sound good, my dear law enforcers? The Quirk scientist's voice is distorted but doesn't echo as much as it did in the stadium. What's the condition? Tsukachi asks. He knows how the Quirk scientist works. He would only do things his way and wanted to control everything. The Quirk scientist claps his hands together, which makes everyone tense up. My condition is pretty simple. I will only speak with Tsukachi Naomesa present, the Quirk scientist says. Tamakawa looks over at Tsukachi. You can't seriously be thinking of doing it dash. I am. I accept your condition, Quirk scientist, Tsukachi interrupts. I'm glad. Now everyone else, go along, the Quirk scientist waves everyone off. The Quirk scientist sighs when nobody moves. I won't kill him. You have my word that Tsukachi Naomesa will leave this room alive and intact. One by one, everyone left to leave Tsukachi and the Quirk scientist alone. Tsukachi takes a deep breath and decides to sit across from the Quirk scientist. Let's begin, shall we? A pool of giddiness lays in Izuku's gut. His chin rests in his left hand and his right hand is playing with pastel tie-dyed fidget cube that Kurogiri had gifted him last year. Let's begin, shall we? Tsukachi asks. He's clearly disturbed by Mineta's mutilated corpse on his left, but the grape beach had deserved it. Izuku nods. Izuku regrets coming to the precinct the second he hears the first question. How many quirks do you have? Tsukachi decides that question is one of the safer ones. Now that the light isn't obscuring the face, Tsukachi can clearly see the quirk scientist has toxic neon green eyes. Those eyes betray the quirk scientist's sudden fear at the question, but the boy hides the fear easily. I have 4 quirks at the moment, true. Tsukachi brings out a notebook from the inside of his jacket and records that on the first clean page. 4 questions remain. What do you know about the League of Villains? Tsukachi asks. Tsukachi mentally files the way that the quirk scientist had shortly paused in playing with a switch on a fidget cube. I work with them. They're the supporting family I never had, true. Tsukachi can't help the concern he feels as he writes it down. Tsukachi mentally slaps himself though for feeling concern towards the villain. 3 questions remain. How old were you when you took your first life? Tsukachi hesitantly asks. The quirk scientist huffs in what seems to be amusement. I was 10 years old when I first killed someone. It was quite messy since I was so inexperienced though. Sensei was so proud when I showed him the man's torn-off foot, the quirk scientist recalls with a fond look in his eyes. Disgust pools in Tsukachi's gut at the mental image of a 10-year-old presenting a foot to this sensei person. He still writes it down. 2 questions remain. Who is the person who you called sensei? Tsukachi asks. His grip tightens on the pen as he prays that monster isn't alive. The quirk scientist's eyes crinkle in a way that shows he's smiling. All for one, of course, the quirk scientist purrs. The hairs on the back of Tsukachi's neck stand up. Somehow, his grip tightens further. 1 question remains. Why 1A? Tsukachi asks through gritted teeth. The quirk scientist has the nerve to chuckle. One of those hero-in trainings was not very heroic. Do you know what it feels like to sob and scream while your skin becomes blistered and charred? Because I do. All because I scored higher than him on the APOP quiz in math. True. Tsukachi notices the sadness beneath the quirk scientist's rage-filled tone. But why does he sound sad about being a victim? Tsukachi asks himself. 0 questions remain. The quirk scientist stands up and brushes off his knees. Tsukachi stands as well. Goodbye, Suki-sen, the quirk scientist says. Tsukachi's eyes widens as he remembers where he knew those green eyes. The quirk scientist darts forward and sweeps Tsukachi's legs from underneath him. The quirk scientist places his palm on Tsukachi's forehead and then Tsukachi's world is engulfed in pain. Aizawa Shoyuta sits beside the bed of Tsukachi Naomasa. The heart monitor beeps in a steady pattern and Tsukachi's chest lifts and falls at certain intervals. Aizawa grimaces as he remembers the scene he walked in on. Only one rookie officer is nearby and his hand is itching towards his gun as sweat beads roll down his face. The man looks at Aizawa with wide eyes and quickly runs to Aizawa, shaking him. Eraserhead-sen, the quirk scientist broke in. He's with Tsukachi in the file room. A sudden scream comes from the file room, the very room Tsukachi was currently in. Aizawa and the officer begin sprinting towards the room, the former much faster than the latter. When Aizawa reaches the file room, there is 3 people in the room. Shiro Hanta's corpse is identifiable by his elbows and his still open unseeing eyes. The only thing identifying the other corpse is the UA badge reading, Mineta Mino. Tsukachi's body is limp on the ground. Aizawa runs forward and puts 2 of his fingers on Tsukachi's wrist, trying to find a pulse. A faint drumming comes from Tsukachi's wrist. The paramedics rushing Tsukachi to the hospital are surprised that he was still alive. The most ominous thing about Tsukachi's vitals was his quirk factor. His quirk factor was completely ripped out. Tsukachi Naomasa was now quirkless and in a coma from the shock and pain in losing his quirk. The notebook beside Tsukachi had one name, Sensei. Aizawa grits his teeth and digs his nails into his palms. Who was Sensei, and did they have the same abilities as the quirk scientist? Family group chat? 1527. SEK de blood. Izuku, check the news. Green psychopath. It's a report of a new restaurant opening. Is this your way of asking me out again? Because if it is, you should know I don't like seafood. Burnt daddy issues. She means the news report of the quack scientist. Quack. Which of you fuckers changed quack to quack? Missed Mom. I believe Tamura knows. Need a hand? Dimin you Kurojar. Burnt daddy issues. Seriously though, check the news. Green psychopath. They're bringing Nedzu onto my case. Need a hand? The smart rat? You think you can win? Green psychopath. Have you so little faith? Need a hand? Green psychopath. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Missed Mom. Do you think you'll be able to outsmart him, Izuku? Or will you require assistance? Green psychopath. I'll be fine. If all goes wrong, I get a new specimen. Poison Sun. This is why the Hero Society fears you. Shinso Hitoshi walks up to Midoriya, who is sitting against the wall in the hallway. A small smile is on Midoriya's face as he reads something on his phone. Izuku? Shinso asks. The two were on a first-name basis after the sports festival. Midoriya hits the home button and looks up at Shinso. Hitoshi, I didn't hear you coming, Midoriya says. He only stuttered near strangers now. Since hanging out, Shinso realized just how much Midoriya's family affected him as a person. Midoriya said he had a few older brothers, 2 sisters, and 2 little brothers. His mother was brutally murdered in front of him and his father was an abusive shitwad. When Midoriya said that his father had once chained him up in their basement for 2 weeks without basic needs, Shinso was ready to do something very illegal. Then the body of Midoriya Hisashi was found. Shinso didn't mention it to Midoriya just because of how tired Midoriya looked. Midoriya's hair was becoming messier day after day and Shinso recognized the shimmer underneath Midoriya's eyes as concealer. Midoriya Izuku stands up from his spot and makes eye contact with Shinso. He's getting paler, Shinso suddenly realizes. A small smile tugs at Midoriya's face. Lunch is ending in a few minutes. I was wondering if I could walk you back to class, Shinso says. He had originally come to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Midoriya, but after noticing Midoriya's current condition, Shinso thought better. The two begin walking side by side in a comfortable silence. Then Midoriya's pace begins slowing down. Shinso glances back to see Midoriya give a reassuring smile. Shinso looks away and continues walking. Then something hits the ground with a thud. Shinso flinches and looks back to see Midoriya Izuku on the floor. Shinso rushes to Midoriya's side and tries shaking him awake, then he stops when he realizes just how irregular Midoriya's breathing is. Shinso reaches up and puts the back of his left hand on Midoriya's forehead. Shinso immediately takes back his hand when he feels just how hot Midoriya's forehead is. The heat wasn't like, get me a dimmin ice cream, it was more of, which desert's a-hole did you crawl out of? Shinso Hitoshi calls one of his dads for help. All students could leave the lunchroom early, though with the vigorous training UA put the students through, not many took the offer. Todoroki Shoto was different from most people. He ate quickly, didn't socialize, and got out of cafeteria as soon as humanly possible. Then he heard someone swearing. If he pick up, damn it. The person hisses under their breath. Todoroki decides to walk over to see a purple-haired troll boy who looked very similar to Aizawa, kneeling next to a collapsed Midoriya Izuku. Todoroki speeds up and goes next to the tired-looking boy. He would never admit how Midoriya's determination to save people during the disaster of the sports festival made him more determined to find Tuya. What happened? Todoroki asks. The tired boy looks at him with surprised eyes, but Todoroki sees the slight fear beneath it. He slowed down and then just collapsed, the tired boy hisses. Todoroki blinks, then effortlessly picks up Midoriya, his left arm beneath the greenette's knees and his right arm under his arms. Todoroki saunters down the hallway holding the extremely pale greenette, leaving the tired boy in shock. Wait up! The tired boy shouts after Todoroki and jogs to catch up with him. When Todoroki kicks open the door to Recovery Girl's office, the youthful heroine flinching and turning to glare at the door. The second she sees Izuku though, all past aggressiveness vanishes. Put him on a bed. She commands. Todoroki does not hesitate in gently setting the green net onto an open bed. The tired boy immediately goes to one side of Midoriya's bed and nervously glances at him. What happened to him? Recovery girl asks as she rummages through a drawer. She just collapsed after slowing down while we were walking, the tired boy, now nicknamed Minizawa in Todoroki's head, says with a slightly shaky voice. Recovery girl clicks her tongue and puts the back of a wrinkly hand against Midoriya's forehead. Her frown deepens as she pulls her hand away. Do either of you know if having a higher temperature is a drawback to Midoriya's quirk? Recovery girl asks. Todoroki and Minizawa make confused eye contact. No. His main drawbacks of overuse is migraines and severe eye strain, Minizawa replies, his voice still grasping at the feeble straws of stability. Now that Todoroki looks closer, Midoriya looks much sicker than before. There are bags deep enough to drown Bakugo's ego in underneath those emerald eyes, and pasty skin only enunciates the constellations of freckles. Then, Todoroki realizes something else. Midoriya's chest was no longer moving. Recovery girl and Minizawa notice as well. Recovery girl's eyes widen as she realizes, then her gaze hardens. Get Aizawa. I'm calling the hospital. Recovery girl demands, already going to her phone. Boo dash. Minizawa starts, but Recovery girl is quick to cut him off. Shinso Hitoshi, get your father now. As the two run out of the room, neither notice the brutalized corpse of an invisible girl crammed in a supply closet of Recovery girl's office. He was perplexed. There was this scent of iron hanging in the air. That scent could only mean a student was actively bleeding out near him, or someone required a change in their feminine hygiene products. It was likely the former, as the dorms were well stocked. Nedzu's normally smiling face was replaced with a frown. I am here. A familiar calls out as the hulking figure of All Might opens Nedzu's office doors. All Might, now is not the time. I also suggest you transform now. There's something we must investigate, Nedzu says in a deathly serious voice. All Might doesn't hesitate in going back into the form of Yagi Toshinori, hacking up blood in the process. What's wrong, Nedzu? Toshinori asks. Nedzu looks right into the symbol of peace's eyes and says in a grim tone. It appears that the Quirk scientist has struck again. As Nedzu stands in front of three corpses from 1A, his beady eyes are closed and his paws are together in prayer. Nedzu hears footsteps and looks over to see all the staff of UA with various shocked expressions. Surprisingly, Recovery Girl, Snipe, and Mike are nowhere to be found. Nedzu, what happened? Aizawa speaks up first in a shaky voice. It was the Quirk scientist. He even left a letter addressed to you, Nedzu replies, his cheerful voice nowhere to be found. Aizawa walks over and picks up the white envelope decorated with a bright red wax seal. Shaky fingers pry open the seal and the contents fall to the ground. Aizawa goes on one knee and hesitantly flips the papers over, only to find the image of one Bakugo Katsuki in the common room. His face circled in red marker. Hastily scribbled next to the circle is a single word. Playdate. Toshinori whispers. Aizawa begins flipping over the other papers, only to find them as pictures of his children in the dorms with the same red circles and single words next to their heads. The dead students' heads were marked off with X's. Aizawa glances over at the three new corpses, the various blank eyes staring up at him. A phone begins ringing. Everyone jumps and Aizawa activates his quirk out of instinct. The ringing continues and everyone realizes the sound is coming from the corpses. Aizawa walks over the bloodied corpse of Ida Tenya and notices the phone in a red case, the screen alight in an incoming call. Aizawa reaches out with shaky hands and clicks the accept button. Miss me? A distorted voice purrs. Nedzu's eyes narrow further. Quirk scientist. I'm afraid I can't say I missed your presence. Nedzu's tone is strained from containing a flurry of emotions. A maniac giggle that is only creepier from the voice distorter comes from the other line. How rude of you. Now, I have a little piece of advice for you. What advice could a killer possibly offer to pro-heroes? Aizawa snaps. The Quirk scientist clicks his tongue and something glints from a rooftop of a near building. Your friends always know personal details about you. But the enemy can be closer than you know, A red dot of light appears on Midnight's forehead. Night, night, though I guess you could say, it's time for a nice lullaby. The window shatters and Kayama Namuri falls backwards, her eyes barely open but unseen. A small hum comes from the Quirk scientist. Now what about that green-haired kid in the infirmary? Oh, would you look at that? He's already dead. Looks like the poison caught up with him. Aizawa passes the phone to Nedzu and begins sprinting to the infirmary. Another giggle is elicited from the Quirk scientist. Ida Tenya, Hagakure, Satorikidu, Kudakuji, and now Kayama Namuri. And let's not forget the other pro-hero, your traitor. Good night to you as well, Snipe-san. A gunshot echoes over the line. The line cuts off as the Quirk scientist hangs up. While the pro-heroes are in shock and Midoriya Izuku's heart is now longer beating, Toga Himiko giggles as her transformation wears off. She disassembles the sniper and puts it back into Snipe's case next to his limp body. As Toga Himiko skips through one of Kurojire's warp gates, she can't help the pang of guilt burying itself in her chest. She can't help but wonder how Izuku drew out their deaths so long without that heaviness in his chest. Hello, dear readers. I am InsomniaToad, the author of Once 1A. I've recently been going back into earlier chapters of this FIC and have realized that I missed words in sentences. This includes some verbs which make some of the sections harder to read. I will be going back into earlier chapters and editing sentences to allow them to flow better. I am not abandoning this FIC. My update schedule for this FIC is sporadic as I update whenever I finish writing each chapter. Next chapter will hopefully come out later this month or early next month.